Now we are live, and I've just got done spamming a bunch of Facebook groups. I am Flux of fluxwithit.com, as you probably know. We're going to kind of take it slow right here just because I'm waiting for people to kind of filter into the live stream, as always, and there'll be notifications being sent out and that sort of thing. But I'm here with Paul Schreiber of Synthesis Technology, and Paul has a new module that he's been working on, but he also has a bunch of other modules that have kind of been in the works for a while and just released. So we're going to talk a little bit about that stuff as well. Before I get too deep into any of it, I want to recap a little bit of history, and we'll kind of start from there. So the history to start with is going to be that I've interviewed Paul a few other times, and Paul just now kind of reminded me that it was longer ago than I realized. So 4 years ago. And we've done, I think, 3 interviews together. So we did 2 direct interviews, and then we did 1 from KnobCon, right?
Right.
So I'm seeing some people come in here. We got Wambra in here. We've got Vladimir in here. So shout out to you guys. Thanks for checking it out. The fact that the interviews have been so far apart is interesting, because there's been a lot of changes in the producing community as a whole in that time. So there's still a lot to talk about, but those interviews were far longer than we'll probably make this one.
So we're not going to go 3 hours.
We're not going to go 3 hours, but
I actually talked for 3 hours, which is surprising even for me. So,
but it's also interesting. So there's that. I see. We got Chris from Conjured Circuits here.
Well, yeah, all of my peanut gallery is here. I'm waiting for Brad Holland to show up. I'm waiting
when
for
Brad shows up, everything stops. So.
Auntie will show up from Finland. I'll be disappointed if people don't come in. And I see Vlad's here, so that's a good start.
Here's what I want to say. As far as those previous interviews, the reason why I really want to mention them is if you really want a deep, more nuanced backstory on Paul, I do still recommend going back and checking those videos out because they give a really long-winded, very long backstory into a lot of Paul's path, which is really fascinating stuff. If you're into modular synthesis, analog synthesizers, and
the Tandy MG1 and the Tandy MG1
and the Tandy MG1, yeah. So realistic. Was it realistic?
Yeah, they called it that. They ran out of names, I guess. I wanted to call it Micronta, but that was for voltmeters. So yeah, basically, or we could call it the fake Moog. No,
we can't call it that.
No, it's Behringer. Sorry. I love you to death.
So anyway, point being, if you want to get some great history, you can go check that out. So we've got about 25 people in here live viewing directly from YouTube, and we're also streaming to the Producers Hangout Facebook group, which is a first time for me doing that, directly streaming to multiple places. So this is kind of a test feed for that kind of thing. So what I wanted to start off with is, Paul, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself, and especially tell me about synthesis technology and what synthesis technology is.
Sure. So for those that don't know my backstory, I'll give a very brief history. I started Synthesis Technology, but not as a music company. The name of the company was going to be Speech Synthesis Technology, but that was too long, so I shortened it. And the reason it was speech synthesis was I was a contractor to TI on the 2nd and 3rd generation Speak and Spell parts. So the Speak and Spell had already shipped, but they were trying to move away from being a company that built toys to sell chips to toy companies. So they hired me to develop a set of software and hardware tools they could give to, like, Mattel, for example, and have Talking Barbie, or give to Golden Books and do those little books that when you open them up and you Mattel, for example, and have Talking Barbie, or give to.
Sorry about that.
Ken's over here playing with the delay on the Hyperion. Anyway. So that's where this technology started. I got into doing synthesizers, doing the MOTM kits, the 5U kits that started in 1998. And I did those until 2008 when we all had the famous crash of 2008. I was affected. It was always a hobby for me. And I had a really good paying job at BlackBerry, but that all came crashing down. So I sold the MOTM business to SynthCube, and he still has that. And I put synthesizers aside for a couple of years until I met my DSP partner, Eric Brombaugh, and he's here joining us right now. And he's probably going to correct everything I say about software. But he and I just hit it off. Turned out I had moved to Phoenix, Arizona to work for Microchip, the PIC processors, and he was only about 10 miles away. And we decided to start collaborating, and we came out with my first module, which was the cloud generator, then followed by the morphing terrarium. And so that kind of got me back into synthesizers again. And so I've been doing my current Eurorack modules. I started on Valentine's Day of 2010. So I'll be coming up on my 10th year anniversary next year.
So the MOTM stuff from SynthCube, that's all officially licensed from you? Is that how that works?
It's not licensed. He owns it.
Oh, he owns it now. Okay.
Yes, he's the owner of it.
I was curious about that because and this is a bit of a tangent, but I really like the 5U format just aesthetically. I think it's beautiful.
Well, I do too. But the trouble is that is more DIY oriented. And the reason I got bogged down with MOTM was I shipped over 1.8 million parts in little plastic bags. So let that sink in. I personally hand counted out so every kit was 12 plastic bags. And yes, people would trash me for ruining the environment with 12 plastic bags, but they had Ziploc tops so you could reuse them. And, but I would sit there hours and hours going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And if I missed one 10K resistor, just one 10K resistor, I got an email. Bastard.
Well, that's, yeah.
So like, look, dude, I'm counting millions of parts. I think my error rate was like 0.001% error rate. Okay. But if you multiply that out, that's 2,000 unhappy people. And so I was just like, look, I'm kind of done with the kit stuff. And so I was ready to get rid of it anyway. I was really ready to get rid of it anyway. And I know a lot of people enjoyed soldering, but what happened with MOTM, it turned out to be like a jigsaw puzzle. Because when you do a jigsaw puzzle and you finish it, you buy a new jigsaw puzzle. What do you want? You want a bigger jigsaw puzzle, right? More parts, more pieces. And people kept sending me emails going, why don't you do a vocoder with 47 bands that has 10,000 parts in it? I would love to solder that. And so I decided just to kind of put it aside for a while. And I didn't know anything about Euro. I wasn't focused on Euro. But then I started kind of getting lonely for modular synthesizers. And I discovered Eurorack. And when I discovered Eurorack in 2009, there wasn't 750 people in it like there is now. 2 or 3 or 4. And in fact, even dabbled a little bit in Frac Rack. Okay. So all of that was a beginning. You can see all my stuff on synth-tech.com, synth-tech.com. And where we're coming to now to talk about is this little bad boy right here, which I have to do blindly. So this is a panel mock-up of the Hyperion processor in my 4 milliseconds 48 HP pod.
You are getting a little bit ahead of me, but that's okay.
Well, I can't steer it because everybody's like, I'm here to talk about Hyperion. He's talking
That's
about
right. No, it's okay. It's okay. But it's important to have a little bit of that backstory because that's gonna because that's basically gonna help us understand a little bit more about the Hyperion. But I'm just gonna jump into Hyperion because I got a lot of questions and I got There's a lot of aspects to this that I really kind of want to understand a little bit better. And there was a great question that already came into the YouTube that I do want to jump into early because we can get into the nitty gritty of what the Hyperion is first. But the first thing I want to ask you about is the Kickstarter aspect, and we're gonna circle back to the Kickstarter at the end of the show as well, for some other things. But I wanted to ask you. So the question is that you have done a Kickstarter before.
Yes, yes, I did. I did the E370 quad VCO 2 years ago, actually, as a Kickstarter.
So the question is like, how do you feel about that business model and about doing Kickstarters? Because I noticed that you had done some things early on before even Kickstarter. So just kind of give me some idea about this.
So it's a fair question. So the question is, why even do a Kickstarter if you have a dealer network, which I do? I have a dealer network. So why just not let the dealers do it? And the answer is my initial NRE cost. All right. So for those of you who don't have my modules, who are used to a typical Eurorack kind of module, let's talk about the thing that you touch the most, the pots and the knobs, right? So in all the Eurorack modules, except for mine, you're going to have some nice pots. You're going to have usually a D shaft, which means the knobs push on. There's a friction fit. The shaft is like the letter D, and it pushes on, which is nice because you pop them off and push them back on. All right. And the shafts tend to be plastic. Some are metal, but usually they're plastic. And those pots cost in quantity that people buy them. They're under, say, 80 cents. The knobs are probably a quarter. Right? And they work fine, because if they didn't work fine, how could we all still be in business? So then there's hundreds of thousands of these pots out there. But I don't do that. Here's what I do. I use pots from a company called BI, and some of the lower cost pots are BI. I have to come from the other side here, so bear with me. My screen's not backwards, but I am. All right. My pots are guaranteed for roughly 2 million rotations. All right. And that means 62% of them will last 2 million, but 38% will last more. All right. 3 million, 4 million rotations. All right. These are also sealed. They're epoxy sealed because this entire board is washed in basically an industrial dishwasher. So a robot, not people, I have a robot, sorry for the glare, called a selective solder, is basically a solder pump that simply goes like this and solders each one of these connections absolutely perfectly. If you can tell that. They're perfectly uniform, every single one. Okay? This is on a $65,000 machine, which I don't have, but I pay for my assembler. Then the whole board is washed. Well, the pots have to be sealed so water doesn't get in there. So my pots have a little gasket O-ring seal around them. All right. Some people notice that when you turn them, when you first get your module, they seem to actually turn and maybe backlash, or they'll turn and wiggle. That's because the O-ring seal is gripping here, and it takes a little bit of time for that grip, because the grip is keeping the dust and the dirt out. Okay. When I buy these pots, I'm not paying under 70 cents. They're almost, with the tariffs, $3 a piece. So look at all those $3 pots on there. Okay. And that doesn't include the assembly cost. The knobs, notice these are not D-shaft, they're round. So there's no pressure fit on my knobs. The knobs I use have an Allen set screw into a brass collar. So they'll never get loose, they'll never wiggle. It takes a 1.6 millimeter standard Allen wrench to get out. There are clones of this knob, and I have floated that to my customer base about, why don't you just buy the cheap clones? Because they don't look as good. Because I know a lot of people like how my modules appear, and so I don't want to change it in midstream. I've thought about it a couple of times. I could have saved Oh, probably $45,000 buying clone knobs. But I think my users appreciate the fact that I don't. So what does all this mean to you? Lifetime warranty. I'm the only Eurorack module manufacturer and probably one of the few manufacturers in all of the MI industry that offer a true lifetime warranty, meaning as long as I'm able to fix it or send you a new one, if you buy it, 10 years from now, 15 years from now.
Paul, that's what I was about to ask. Is it lifetime of the user or the builder?
No, it's lifetime of the module, okay? For example, I still have people who want me to fix their MOTM modules that they bought in 1999. And even though SynthCube owns that, okay, I'll do it. I'll replace some pots. The pots that I used back in MOTM were the best I could buy at the time, but they're not as good as these. And so when those pots, after 10 or 15 years of use, need to be replaced, I'll replace them with these pots right here. And you're good for another 30 years probably, like that. I come from a military electronics background, part of my many jobs I've had. And I like the fact that things don't break for 20, 30, 40 years. You have to pay for that, okay? But I really think that in the long term, okay, I want nothing to come back, all right? But it's almost impossible. You can't build anything that's perfect. And I do have people that send stuff back, and I try within 1 week to either repair it, I'll just walk over to my bench over there, and I'll build you a whole new one and send it back. So that's something to think about when you look at the pricing of my modules. I think that they're a little bit more expensive than some other modules, but you get that lifetime warranty.
You get a lifetime warranty, and you also get a module that's, just in general feels nice. And I speak to, I've got a E350 in my rack that I've had in there for a while now, and it doesn't feel any different from the day that I got it, to be honest with you. It feels like dead on. Which is an okay thing.
Right. So let's talk about the Kickstarter, getting back to Kickstarter. So the reason I did the Kickstarter for the E370 is a different reason than I'm doing the Kickstarter for the Hyperion. For the E370, which was going to be a $900 retail module, back when only Schweiman had anything close to that. And there was really nothing even above $450 at the time. Okay, so this is before clouds and Renee and stuff like that. Okay, there wasn't anything in this kind of upper high-end range. And so when I went to my dealers and said, I have this giant module, it's 52 HP, and they're like, oh my God, 52 HP. And I said, it's going to cost you $750. Oh my God, $750. How many do you want? They went, 2, 4. And so I couldn't get any traction with the dealers. And I don't blame them for that. There was no.
Hold on. Before we jump too far ahead. So you say that's dealer pricing, which means that the dealer gets it at that price, and then they mark it up, and then that's how they make their profit.
Right. So it's like $800 or $900 retail, right?
Okay. Just so people understand, like that when you say that, you know,
standard dealer markup, right? And so I couldn't get enough interest from the dealers, and I kind of suspected that all along anyway. This was no surprise and no shock to me. All right. Well, I didn't know what to do, and I had only heard of Indiegogo. And people said, well, maybe you should do Indiegogo. And I said, what's that? Well, I'll go look. Well, it's all jewelry and, trinkets and stuff. I'm like, what's? And then all of a sudden, here comes someone says, try Kickstarter. And oh, by the way, check this link. Well, the link was to a board game, right? So it was a Cartan, just a little, RPG Dungeons and Dragons board game that had raised $800,000 for cardboard. I'm in the wrong business. I need to just go do that. No, I'll come back. And I said, what is this Kickstarter thing? And I started reading about it, and it got a lot of negative publicity because just about the time I was thinking about Kickstarter, someone had run off with $2 million of funding that people did for somewhat like an electric scooter, like an electric Razor scooter. Okay. And people are like, it's a bunch of fraud. It's no good, blah, blah, blah. It's run by Amazon. We hate Amazon. We have Jeff Bezos, blah, blah, blah. Thing about Kickstarter is it's all done through a credit card or a debit card. There's no PayPal. You have to have a credit card or debit card in order to pledge. People are like, I don't like that having my credit. I just don't like anything about it. But I kept seeing guitar pedals. Guitar pedals were selling like hotcakes on Kickstarter. And if they can do guitar pedals, what can I do? It's just a guitar pedal. Sorry, Chris, it's a guitar pedal. So I'm thinking like, I'm going to give it a try. All right. And so I set my Kickstarter funding level, which is where you set where it's funded, right? Because remember, the model for Kickstarter is like you're pledging to your local PBS station. There's no buying, there's no selling. You are pledging to a campaign for the promise of a gift, or actually what they call it is reward. It took 47 lawyers to talk out 28 lawyers to say reward versus gift. Okay. And so I put my funding for around 60 units. And I did not expect even to get the funding for 60 units. I said maybe 40 or 50. Well, if you know what happened, how long did it take to fund those 60 units? 43 minutes. It was funded.
Don't get pompous.
Well, I'm not saying. I'm just I was a little.
No, congratulations on that.
I was upset at the dealers for not knowing that's what the market was, because they were telling me there's no market, and I said okay. But it turns out there was a market, and then I found out there's actually people out there, even though Kickstarter gets a lot of negative publicity, there's a lot of people who like Kickstarter. Okay, one of the things I can do is this is kind of creepy, so don't creep out everybody, is that when you pledge to me, I can go look at your profile, and it tells me how many other ones you've pledged, but not which ones you've pledged, but just like, well, he's pledged 5 other things. Okay. And I found some people who pledged to me that had pledged over 100 different Kickstarters. 100. And I was like, heck yeah. So what's going to happen right now is that the reason I'm going to a Kickstarter and not going to my dealers is it's coming up to Christmas. They're focused on the Christmas selling. Everybody wants the newest and latest thing. Okay. If you talk to any of my manufacturers, if you look at what's selling that you released in the last year versus you released in the last 6 or 7 years, it's what you released in the last year. People just want the latest thing. And my project, the Hyperion we'll talk about, is not anywhere close to being released for Christmas sales. So I said, knowing that, I'm going to go do a Kickstarter, and this will tell me 2 things. It'll tell me how many people are really interested in this kind of a module, because I'm always a negative kind of conservative person. Being an engineer, I'm like, nobody wants it, nobody loves me. But the other thing is I have to worry about, are these pots? Because these pots are what we call NCNR, non-cancelable, non-returnable. Okay. Once I order them, and the order is sent, even though I don't pay for them immediately.
And how many is on each module?
Well, this one there's 28, but the other one's
28 per module.
Well, this is on the E370. If we look at the Hyperion, it's 16.
Still
4x4. Okay, 16. So I have to know how many to order, and the reason that's a big deal, besides the fact that it costs $3 with the tariff, is the fact that they take 16 weeks to get to me.
Okay.
That's 4 months. And so I need to have the Kickstarter running coming up, starting on Friday. It's going to run till the middle of December. The day after the Kickstarter is over, these pots are ordered. Okay? Because the pots which are parts. The pots are not going to get here until March. We're going to build in April. We're going to start shipping the end of May. In order to meet this thing, the schedule, I have to get these pots ordered, but I'm not going to sit here and say, well, I guess I'll just order 10,000, I hope that's enough. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to see how many I need. I'm going to order extra. We'll talk about why extra. I use these on all my modules, but that's the count I need. So that's why I'm doing a Kickstarter, is I need to collect the money so I know how many pots to order, so I can order the pots. So when they come in March, there's no surprises.
Mm-hmm.
That's why there's a Kickstarter.
So you like to use it as a way of like really gauging things and kind of, just kind of nailing stuff down before you go full blast.
Yes, because I can't afford to have a garage full of parts that nobody wants because they're NCNR. Okay. It's not like so one of the disadvantages I have is, since I don't use the same parts as everybody else, I can't turn around and sell them to other manufacturers or put them on eBay or anything. Okay. I am stuck with my pots. Okay. And that's by far the most expensive thing in there. In some modules, the cost of the pots, the knobs, are more than everything else combined, because resistors and capacitors are basically free and ICs are pretty cheap, and so what I pay for more than that is the assembly. Okay, because I assemble in Dallas. I don't assemble in China. I assemble in Dallas. It's the same assembler that I've used for over 30 years. I used them back 30 years ago at TI. I'm still using them today. They know me, I know them. I can get in my car and drive over there. There's a problem, and I trust them. The average person who works at this contract manufacturer has been there 27 years.
Goodness.
Okay.
That's kind of rare right there, too.
Yeah. It's like a family kind of vibe for this contract assembler. And if anybody has my modules.
You're saying the average age?
No, the average longevity.
Oh, okay.
They have been, the average age is probably 50.
Well, no. That's what I'm saying, though. If that's the case, so I'm gonna flip that on its head, Boomer. So here's the question then. So do you feel like that facility has been updated and everything has stayed, current? And
well, here's the deal about that. This company's main business is doing encrypted radios for the U.S. government that the blank board costs $5,000 with no parts on it.
Well, that's just because it costs for the government.
No, that's because it's 28 layers.
Pish posh.
Right, 28 layer board. My point is that you don't worry how old the equipment is. You don't worry about how old the people are. You worried about how well is the end product built. And again, I feel that literally nobody in Eurorack builds a better quality module than I do. And that's because of the parts and who I use as my assembler. Okay, I probably spend 10 times more on my assembly than people who build overseas. Easily 10 times. But the advantage I have is I don't have a company with 45 employees, and I don't have to have a building. My building is my exciting garage here. Nice garage. In fact, I was
about to say, you're showing your garage, but you're not showing the pinball.
I got pinball over there. Well,
it doesn't count until you show pinball.
Here. Can you see the pinball now?
Yes.
All right.
But you're quite gorgeous.
There's my pinball.
Quite like the green.
Right. So that's what I feel as I have an advantage over some other manufacturers, is I'm focused on the quality aspect. Okay, I'm like Shiner Beer, which is a little craft brewery in Texas. The CEO says, I want to sell in a year what Budweiser spills in a day. So I'm not trying to compete with the Make Noise, the IntelliGel, the Mutables of the world. I kind of only compete with myself. That's how I view myself. So I focus on a different segment of the market. I'm not trying to sell as many as I can. Sorry, honey, my wife says, why not? I'm trying to sell the best that I can. And that's what I feel like I've done.
Okay, so we've got the Kickstarter stuff out of the way. Let's talk a little bit. What?
Well, I'm just going to talk real brief about Kickstarter for people who've done it, who've never done it before. So the Kickstarter for this is going to start on Friday at 1 o'clock Eastern. It's going to run for 30 days. There's multiple rewards in a Kickstarter. You always have what's called an early bird special, which means if you come in usually on the first hour to 2, that you get a discounted price. And we have those. How much will that price be? In the US, it's $5.39 plus shipping. Okay, well, the price will be $5.39 plus shipping. The shipping is based if you're in US, Canada, or elsewhere. You will notice that the shipping is going to look high. And the reason is, I'll tell you this, because when I did the E370 Kickstarter, by the time I shipped, our government had raised the price of my postage 20%, which I did not have any clue of. And I lost $27,000 in postage last Kickstarter because of the postage costs going up.
You act like that's a bad thing.
Right. Well, I'm just trying to do my part. So the postage may appear to be high, okay, but I did weigh everything, I measured everything, I looked, and I assumed that the postage was probably going to go up a little bit, 5% or something.
I do remember that jumping.
Right, so it had a huge jump, okay, because our government is now threatening to pull out the International Postal Union, which who knows what will happen. Brexit, who knows what will happen when I ship to England? I don't know. So I'm going to ship. So one of these modules is going to ship. The modules are going to start shipping the end of May. How long will it take to ship all of them? Well, the more you buy, the longer it's going to take me to ship, probably until July or so. What happens if you miss the Kickstarter? Because what happened last time with the Kickstarter is the day after the Kickstarter, people said, oh my God, I just now heard about it. I just now heard. Oh my, what can I do?
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do.
I remember that too.
It's what I did last time. For a limited time, not forever, for probably 60, maybe not even 60 days, maybe 45 days. I'll put them up on my website, but not at the early bird price and not at the price on Kickstarter for the retail price, which is $5.99. Okay, $5.99 retail, but that's not going to be the Kickstarter price. But if you wait and order from me, I'm going to charge you $5.99 plus shipping. Okay. The other thing that I'm not going to do, unless I have a bunch left over, is I'm not going to offer the pod version. So this is a 48 HP, 4 milliseconds powered pod. That's where the adapter goes. This is going to be bundled only on Kickstarter. So if you want to get this nice little double setup here, that's a Kickstarter thing. All right. I'm not going to be a storefront. I don't want to be 4 milliseconds reseller. Okay. So if you want that version, you need to go to Kickstarter and get it, because you're going to save even more money if you buy it as a bundle than if you went off to a dealer to buy that pod. Because I feel that the use of an effects processor like this is just as useful sitting on the tabletop as it is in your rack.
So Paul, just so you know, I did send you a message in the private chat. I want you to go look at that also. I'm not talking about right now, but just so you know. So with that all being said, the Kickstarter is still the way you want to go, because the Kickstarter is going to obviously get you a better deal. But I'm putting the cart before the horse a little bit, because people don't even know what we're talking about. So I want to jump into what we're talking about. And what we're talking about is a multi-effects module, to break it down to its raw basic essence, right?
Right. So let's start.
Wait. Before you jump in and start talking, I want to know. So what was it that made you want to do a multi-effects product to begin with? Okay.
So if you follow your rack, there's been one basic effects processor out there, and it's based on the same chip. So it doesn't matter if it's a tip-top ZDSP or an Erica Sense or anybody else. It's based on a company called Spin Semiconductor. The part is called an FV, Frank Victor 1, which is a single chip, hard-coded little DSP/microcontroller that has a little open library, open in the sense that you can download the compiler, you can get the effects from the Spin website yourself. And it's designed to be what I call like a karaoke box effects unit. All right. So it has like little reverb, a little delay, little things like that, but it doesn't have a lot of memory, number one. And it doesn't have a lot of CV inputs. It has 3. But those CV inputs are filtered at 10 hertz, so you can't change them very quickly. But the main thing is it just is a low-end processor that seems to do a job. You can have these things retail for $199, okay? And they've been out there for years. And in fact, I think just the last couple of months, 2 more have been offered, 2 more Spin parts, okay? Well, I use a family of processors in the 352 and the 370, and even in the 950 circuit bit VCO and the 330 multi-VCO called an ARM. Stands for Acorn Risk Machines. It's a company in England. And these ARM processors have slowly been getting faster and faster and faster. And they have peripherals now where they can address SDRAM, synchronous DRAM, which is the same DRAM that's in your computer and on your video card. Well, my partner Eric Brombaugh and I have been waiting and waiting for a processor that is fast enough to do something called a fast Fourier transform, an FFT. An FFT is how you take a signal and break it up into frequency bands. So it's the inverse of a graphic equalizer. It's what we call a spectrum analyzer. You feed a complex signal in, and it gives you a table of data that says, for these frequencies, here's how much amplitude and phase you have for each one of those frequencies. And normally that FFT is very math intensive, and it takes a processor that has to run at hundreds of megahertz or even gigahertz to get good audio response. So we waited long enough until ST Microelectronics announced what's called the H7, the Cortex M7 family, which can run at 480 megahertz and has enough onboard fast static memory, because it doesn't do you any good if the processor runs at 480 if your memory doesn't.
Yeah.
Right? Everything.
H7 is like the higher end of, like, because I was looking at the chips recently. Like
there's an F7 Frank 7.
Okay.
There's an H7.
Okay.
Okay. So the Frank 7 is what's in the E352 and the E370.
Mm-hmm.
But we wanted the H7 because
the F was a big step up from your E350. I remember that. Right.
Well, that was a pick, but yeah. So that's a big step up. Well, the difference between an F and the H is the F runs at 216 megahertz max. Doesn't have the math features that the H7 has, which can run up to 480. Has the synchronous DRAM interface, and also basically has a floating point math coprocessor built into it. Okay, taking all these things together, that's when Eric and I said, you know what we can do? We can start really doing some good, what we call spectral effects, as opposed to a time effect. A time effect is like a reverb, a delay, a flanger, a looper, where you simply read data into a buffer at one speed and you play it back out at another speed. You play it now or you play it later. You play it forwards or you play it backwards. But you're just basically taking audio data in and then waiting for some time and then reading the audio data back. Okay? That's how all reverbs work, right? But spectral is different. A spectral effect is not something that was even doable back when you had, Eventide H3000s and you had, Lexicon 224 XLs and things like that. The technology of the silicon and of the memory and of the data converters were just not there yet. Okay, they weren't there yet. I'm gonna go get my dog.
She loves me.
So what we have now is we finally have enough hardware at a reasonable price that's not hundreds and hundreds of dollars that we can start doing these spectral effects, which means they're not what we've all heard in the past. Everyone's heard reverb, everyone's heard delay, chorus, flange, echo, but you haven't heard very many spectral effects. And if you had, they were in plugins, like the Native Instruments spectral delay or the Paul stretcher, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Okay. You've heard them in there because, well, you have
a lot of processing power.
You have a 4-core, 4 gigahertz processor with 16 gig of RAM, okay? And you can do these spectral effects, okay? But you can't go put that back into your, little rack mount processors that we all grew up with, PCM 70s, PCM 80, PCM 90, Yamaha, SPX 90, stuff like that. They didn't have enough horsepower. They didn't have enough memory. But now we have that. And so what we're emphasizing with the 520 is not only can we do all the time delay stuff, which we do, all right, but we can do the spectral stuff, which you haven't been able to do in hardware and under voltage control. So, because even though you have a plugin that has 27 sliders and 5 pages and presets, okay, how can you put LFOs from your Eurorack into it? Okay, how can you use an expression pedal into it? Okay, well, the only way is to use a MIDI CC messages. Well, we all know what the problems of that is. It's the mapping, it's the latency. They decide what to do for you, and it's very complicated. So we find out that the combination of this new hardware that's fast enough, memory which is cheap enough, because now memory is laughably cheap. Just go out and look at hard drives if you don't know how cheap memory is. Coupled with the fact that now we can do voltage control, that's where the Hyperion sits in the space of processor effects. It's not a plug-in, it's not a lexicon, it's not an eventide. We're not trying to be lexicon and eventide, okay? Because those people are associated with essentially reverb kind of algorithms, and we're not going to even go there, okay?
So hold on. Let me cut you off. Let me cut you off for just a second about that. So this would be why, and the reason I'm bringing this up is a lot of our viewers are people who do follow you, right? And do follow what synth-tech does because you are kind of a superstar in the Eurorack world. But there's also a lot of people that I'm sharing this with that maybe aren't aware. And part of the reason why I'm sharing this with a lot of producer groups and whatnot is because this will be available in what's called a 4MS pod. And for the producers who aren't aware, a 4MS pod is basically like you get a Eurorack case and can put the module into its own Eurorack case without needing anything else. So like this module will fit in there and then it becomes a standalone product, just like a guitar pedal or anything else, right? So it becomes its own standalone thing. The reason why I'm bringing this stuff up is we're talking about essentially doing things that are a lot of the guitar pedal market, a lot of the rack unit, even effects units. A lot of them want to focus on either distortion, delay, modulation effects, which would be like chorus, flange, or whatever, and which is kind of a sort of delay anyway, right?
Right. It's delay.
And reverb, which is also kind of sort of a delay anyway, right?
It's also delay too. It's delay.
Yeah. So, but what you're talking about is you want to focus on something that's not that, right?
All right. That's our focus. We can do those things. We can do those delay effects very well. And we'll talk about the demos we have and stuff like that. You can go here. But the focus of the module and what I'm encouraging people to pledge towards are these spectral effects that you've only been able to have in plugins, and the plugins are only presets.
And generally speaking, those plugins tend to take up a lot of CPU, to be honest with you. Like I have a lot of the effects that do that kind of stuff, and they are CPU intensive. So when you have outboard gear, one, you get the advantage of hands-on control, which is huge. And I have a few friends that are really in the box, and they keep asking me, they're like, why do you like hardware so much? Why do you like hardware? And they know that I come from a fairly in the box kind of world. And I'm like, man, you just don't know until you can think about a parameter and just grab it. You know what I mean? As opposed to think about a parameter, click on a mouse. I got to go here. I can only change one parameter at a time, or I have to MIDI map it or whatever else. And then even when you MIDI map, you're still limited to the resolution of the MIDI. There's other drawbacks there. So when you have things like CV control, which you basically have CV control over every knob, right?
Pretty much every knob, yeah. And
So,
because if you like, just look at the front panel. We can kind
and can you do them can you do every CV control at, like, what's the maximum frequency that you can modulate a parameter?
Generally, it's around 250 hertz.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's kind of hard. I mean, and what we do.
It's low audio range.
Yeah, because think of reverb, okay? I mean, reverb is reflection off of fixed walls of your church or big room. They don't move at all. In fact, the whole reverb algorithm is based on the fact that they're not moving between reflections. But if you sit there and try to modulate the size of your room at 10 kilohertz or something, a lot of these reverb algorithms just blow up because that's not the model, okay? An algorithm, by definition, is a mathematical model of something. And if the model is supposed to be a fixed model, why are you modulating it? Okay. So what we do is that we pick our algorithms and we test them. And sometimes we put a little bit lower frequency on the modulation, but we try to do much better than a spin part, which is fixed at 10 hertz. Okay. So we don't ever have to go that low. Okay. Sometimes we can go up to kilohertz modulation. But a lot of this is tied to the fact that we have a 48 kilohertz sample rate, and everything has to be done within the bounds of keeping that sample rate as the number one priority in our system. Okay. And so we have a sample rate, and we have to do all this processing, and we have to come back and do it within the sample rate. But you'll find out that doing simple LFO modulations for these parameters are really astonishing, because you can't go up to your Lexicon PCM70 and plug 4 LFOs into it. It's just not possible, but you can ours. Mm-hmm. And even in the delay algorithms, that you've used for years and years, you can LFO them, you can envelope them, you can sample and hold them, put them on expression pedals. And in fact, one of the stretch goals of a Kickstarter, a stretch goal is if you buy more than the minimum, we'll give you a little goodie. And our first goodie we're going to give you is 4 software programmable LFOs that are assignable.
So a mod matrix inside there.
Yes.
Woo!
So if you have a 370 that has a mod matrix, then we're going to put that mod matrix in the 560 if you get that first stretch goal. So I'm dependent on you. So that's one of the things that we're going to do. So the beauty of the 520 is that a lot of people love delays. I like delay algorithms, okay? But you can voltage control them. And we have 60, let's talk about the memory in the Hyperion, okay? If you look at an old effects unit, I'll say anything, PCM blah, 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 Eventide H blah, blah, blah. Okay, maybe not an H9, but H2000, 3000, 4000, 7000. Those things maybe had 256K of memory in them, and they had sample rates around 32 kilohertz, not 44.1, not 48, not 96, not 190.
And the FV is what, 26?
32 kilohertz, I believe.
32? I thought it was 26.
Or something like that's got 32 RAM. I'll have Eric will pipe up here and tell me when I'm wrong. Okay. Well, we have 64 meg of RAM, okay? We can sample in stereo at 48 kilohertz, 24 bits for almost 5 minutes. Okay.
Good Lord.
But we have variable sample rate, okay?
Hold on, let me. Well, that. Oh man, you're already getting to
we can go at the low sample rate. So if you're trying to do a lo-fi effect, like you're trying to do Roland Space Echo, or you're doing Frippertronics tape loops over the mic stands, and you purposely want to have a low sample rate because you like
lo-fi hip hop heads pay attention.
We can do stereo for 22 minutes. Okay.
A 22-minute loop?
Yeah, easy, no problem. Yep.
That's a lot of memory.
That's a lot of, well, and you know what's ironic? This is the smallest memory we can buy now.
That's awesome.
It's like a hard drive. You say, well, I only need a 5 gig hard drive.
That's so crazy.
Hard drive, and they go, no, here's a 10 terabyte one. Well, we have the same issue with memory now, okay? We go, we only want like 16 meg of memory. They go, well, here's a 64 one. And who knows, by the time this thing ships, it may have 256 in there because that's
what you can get.
That's what we can get. So memory is out of the equation, which is not back in the old days. Okay. Now
zip disks were amazing.
Right. Now a VST doesn't have a memory problem, right? You got the whole computer memory. Okay. You don't have a processing problem, right? You got quad core, 8 core, 32 core processors, but what you don't have is CV. Okay. You have maybe MIDI mapping or weird firewire into my DC coupled interface over USB to the MIDI map, blah, 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 blah. But you don't have the hands-on control with direct CV input that you do on the Hyperion.
Mm-hmm. So with the Hyperion, we had a really nice question in the chat room here from PTNA. And he brings up the point that so Rossum has been doing things like the panharmonium, right? Now the panharmonium is kind of a specific thing, specific function. What I want to bring up about that is the fact that this is multi-effects. This is not one effect.
Right. So what we have.
Well, hold on, I haven't gotten to the question yet.
Oh, okay.
Do you what's the process, right? I'm a huge ginger ale fan, so just know that's my soda of choice.
Okay.
What's the process of you selecting what sort of effects are going to be in this module? And also to tack on to this, because I know you like to talk long, and I want to shove as much into time as possible. What's the likelihood of chaining more than one effect? So yeah, I know it's a loaded question. It's an ugly loaded question at the end of it. You got to answer the first part first. The first part first, which is how are you choosing which effects you want to include in this module?
Okay, we don't choose. I want my people who pledged to Kickstarter to help us choose.
Oh, okay.
Okay, if you go to the website, you will see the effects that we have now. We have enough memory. When I say memory, I don't mean audio buffer memory. I mean
onboard
flash memory to store presets and the code. The code. We have enough code space for 32 effects. Okay, 32. Right now, if you go look at our list of effects that we have, it's a PDF file. We have roughly, and Eric's going to correct me here, I think we have 22 or 23, but I use the term propose. Okay, these are what we are proposing. They're not all we're going to do. I want everyone to be very understanding. We are still in R&D. This is not a project that we're going to ship in December or January. I don't have parts here. I don't have front panels here. I'll show you what I have.
Process.
I'll show you what I have here in a second. Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we're gonna get to that. Which, by the way, it's gonna be longer than an hour. Sorry.
Whatever. We'll keep it under 5. Vlad wants to go 4. Okay, Vlad, you're gonna get 4. So, because memory's cheap and YouTube's got a lot of terabyte. So what we've done is I've gone to a group of musicians that I trust. Some of them are MOTM customers that I've known for over 25 years. And I've said, you guys have every effect ever made. You've used every effect ever made. What's missing? Notice I did not say, what's your favorite? What's missing? And that's how we got started. Okay. And I'm using both delay effects, what's missing, and a lot of it was just voltage controlled of going forwards and backwards in a tape loop. Tap tempo, okay? Does your PCM70 have tap tempo? No. Okay. But everything's got tap tempo now.
Yeah.
But it's missing. It's missing. If you have tap tempo, then you can sync to an LFO. If you have an LFO, you can do it in hertz or beats per minute. If you want to sync your delay to exactly 147 BPM, now we can do that. Back then,
you had to type it out and then figure out.
It's missing. All right. So what we've focusing on is what is missing. Now that is also tied to how fast can our processor go so that the user doesn't hear any latency. Okay. We don't want to have any latency when you turn.
How many milliseconds are you talking about when you say you don't hear any latency? Because that can be a perceptible difference from person to person. Now, I also know that there's a set amount that you could say, okay, well, your neurological system can't tell the difference. But and I only say that because I know your engineer ass self is gonna point to that. But what do you feel is an acceptable amount of latency?
I'm going to ask you what you think an acceptable amount of latency is.
Ooh, man. I'll be honest with you. I can actually go kind of high depending on the use case. So I like to do a lot of finger drumming. I could go all the way up to 30 milliseconds, which is really high. But preferably speaking, I'd like to stay around 5 milliseconds.
Or less than 3.
That's impressive.
We win. I'm done. I'm gone. See you guys later. I'm back.
No, and I say that as somebody who
now let's talk about the latency and why we picked that latency. When you do an FFT effect, okay, so the latency is only when you do spectral effects, okay? When we do delay effects, the latency is one sample period, which is 21.5 microseconds, not milliseconds, millionths of a second, okay? So we have no latency issues when we do that. The latency issues that we address are how fast do we update the screen? How fast do we want to read the pots? Okay, that kind of a thing. But it's in microseconds, not milliseconds. Where latency comes into effect is when you run that FFT algorithm. All right. When you run the FFT algorithm, okay, you have to pick a length. The longer you pick, okay, the finer the frequency resolution is. Okay. And so Eric's over here hammering me about the word latency. He's over here.
I can hear him.
He's about to get on a plane to come shoot me. So I'll clarify. Because there's latency in the buffers and latency in the codecs and
there's input, right, output, and total latency.
Right, but it's a constant, so you don't hear it if it's a constant. You don't.
Well, anyway, what I want to talk about is total latency, input versus output, because that's what matters to us, the end user, right?
Right. It's depends on the length of the FFT we use. Okay, so let's talk about the length of the FFT we use. All right, the length of the FFT we use, the longer it is, okay, you get more frequency resolution. So, for example, I'll make it easy, and the FFTs are in powers of 2. So you can have a length of an FFT of 1024. And what does that mean, 1024 length? That means you get 512 frequency readings and you get 512 amplitude and phase readings. Well, if my bandwidth is 20 kilohertz, and I divide that by 512, it's 43.49 hertz. And that's what I can resolve, okay? I can look at 43 hertz, I can look at 86 hertz, you know what I'm saying? I got what we call a bin every 43 hertz I can look at, okay? All the way up to 20 kilohertz, every 43 hertz. Now, if I were to make a 2048 length FFT, okay, well, I could look at 21.5 hertz. Wouldn't that be better?
I think the easy way for
but the trouble is when I compute that
to demonstrate this, like with their own setups, is if you open something like Ozone, you can open up an FFT viewer and you can set the length inside of there, and you can kind of get an idea as far as what you're seeing.
Right, and so what we do is we want to minimize our total latency. We want to have the maximum number of frequency bins to get granularity for our spectra, right? But we have to run it within the sample rate, and we have to run it within the memory we have of our processor, right? And we take all these things into effect. And we've decided that a 1024 point FFT is the best compromise over all these different things, okay? Now, yes, you can get a plug-in, like you can look at, what's it called, GRM tools or Paul Stretch or something, and they have 16,000 point FFTs, okay? You can have 8,000 frequency bands. Well, they're on a quad-core gigahertz platform. Sure they can, all right? But the question is, can you hear the difference? And the answer is generally no. No. Once you start getting around 40 to 30 hertz frequency resolution, we're talking over the entire audio band. There's no degradation. It doesn't roll off. There's no filtering. It's like, well, it's easy to read 43, but you can't read 17409. And I go, yes.
Okay, so I get what you're saying, right? And then I'm gonna just play to that for a second.
Right.
So if you were, for instance, sweeping a filter, right? Are we talking about similar to resolution of like sweeping a filter by 30 hertz at a time?
Well, you're thinking is there a quantization effect?
Well, yeah, exactly. I'm trying to put it into layman's terms in a way that other people are going to just be able to easily, quickly grasp.
No, because what happens is that when you do the inverse FFT to get the audio, so you do an FFT going in, you do an inverse FFT going out, that the codec has what's called an FIR filter in it that smooths the audio out. So there's no stepping, there's no quantization. It's not like it's going it's not that. Okay, it's simply the fact that that's how we can look with our code and say, I can determine within a 96 dB dynamic range how much frequency content is at 43 hertz and how much frequency content is at 86 hertz. And there's a 96 dB separation between those two frequency bands, okay? That's impossible to get with anything analog. You have to have a 50-pole filter to do it, okay? But in the DSP code, we run one pass of the FFT, which is in the millisecond range, not 5, not 10, not 30, millisecond range. We get this information, okay? And so instead of talking about a specific number, I encourage you to go listen to the demos and you tell me if you can hear any kind of quote latency, because they're all in real time. The demos, there's a few that are multi-tracked at the very bottom, but if you go to the other demos on our demo page, you are hearing real-time audio in and real-time audio out, okay? And we're still in the millisecond range of latency. So I don't think that's a problem. And again, that's in the spectral effects. That's not in the delay. The delay effects, the only latency you have is you have to run data through the codec, which is not instantaneous, but no codec is, okay? Because it's a 512 tap filter. So you have to shift 512 samples in to get the first one to come out, okay? But you're clocking it in at megahertz speeds, so there's a, quote, latency there, but that's in every digital thing ever made, even the ones made back in the 1970s, okay? So latency sounds like it's bad. It's something new. It's something we have to control now. No. Ever since there's been an A to D and a D to A to converter, you've had latency. Okay. So I don't want to get too hung up on that because it's not really a factor in this.
Well, it's something that people need to know about because it becomes an issue. Like if people are going 100% wet and they're sending drums through it or whatever they're doing. Now before we get too crazy, right? And before I allow you to talk too much, I'm going to share my screen real quick. Oh shoot, I just removed it. There it goes. Okay. So first thing I want to show people is this. I'm going to run through a few things. So Paul's going to stay quiet for a minute and I'm going to talk. So first off is synth-tech.com/Eurorack, which realistically you can just go to synth-tech.com and then you can click on, on the front page, the E520 is right there and you can click on it and it'll bring you over to this page. But you can see that it's synth-tech.com/Eurorack/ E520 _demo, right? So here you can see the module itself, and I'm kind of steamrolling him real quick because I want to get to some audio stuff. Now, before I play any audio examples to explain what it is that we've been talking about this whole time, I want to say I already did some tests. And I know for a fact that my computer kind of hiccups when I'm playing back these while I'm streaming. So if you hear like clicks, pops, or glitches, it's actually my computer and not the demos. So I highly recommend either A, you go to Synthesis Technology page, which again, synth-tech.com, and you can get there, or you can go to Paul's SoundCloud page. And his SoundCloud is very easy to get to. Paul T Schreiber. That's all you got to do, and then you'll get right to it. Why he didn't make it synth-tech or synth-tech on what is it, SoundCloud? That's just because he just didn't think about it.
Well, I was going to put my personal bagpipe music up there.
Oh, fair enough. And honestly, that wouldn't have sounded as good. So here we are. So I'm going to play just some basic demo stuff, and then I'm going to play like a little bit of it. I'm not even going to play the whole demo, and then I'm going to stop it, and then we're going to have Paul explain to us what's actually happening here, okay? So hold on. Let me see if I can. There we go. So this is a flute. That clicking is my computer. Just be aware. Sorry about that.
Okay, that was 100% dry. Now here comes the effect.
All right, so I'm going to pause it for a second. So you're telling me that the chord of all, like basically the flute trio there, which is like a chord of flutes,
Right.
That's the effect.
Yes. So that's right.
And I think I found out what was causing the glitching, so I'm pretty happy about that too. Like I literally just fixed it.
Loosen up behind the keyboard. So what you heard there is a spectral effect, and it uses what's something called a phase vocoder. But don't get hung up on the word vocoder. It's not the same vocoder that you think Kraftwerk. Although we got that, but this is a new way of doing pitch shifting. And the old way to do it, like the Eventide harmonizer, which made them famous, was you do the pitch shifting by reading a constant rate into a buffer. And I mean, you write a constant rate into a buffer, but you read it out at a different rate. and that will change the pitch up and down. Okay, but the trouble is when the read buffer and the write buffer cross, you have to do all kinds of splicing and VCA and fancy stuff. And that's what Eventide did for 20 years, is how to keep that splicing effect down to a minimum. Okay, a phase vocoder, which operates not in the time domain and the frequency domain with the FFT, has none of those issues. And what you heard is a live, not multi-tracked, where we mix the original flute with one flute is shifted slightly up in pitch and one is shifted slightly down in pitch, but the pitch shifting is quantized to exactly the whole note equal tempered scale, which we can turn off and on.
Hold on one second. Hold on. So I'm trying to get information from the chat here to be sure that they heard the audio, because I got a no, I think that was from a while ago from Vlad saying there is audio.
I think people heard the audio. I think
they did. Okay, you're right. I just wanted to be 100% sure, because unfortunately with these live streams, there's no way for me to like monitor that stuff without getting all kinds of feedback.
Right. Okay. So this is one algorithm in the spectral part, and we basically split our algorithms into time and spectral and utility, because we have some little utility modules like VU meters and oscilloscopes and kind of little fun. My cat Moses, he's in there. For those of you who care, it's a new pick too. So order and get a new Moses pick. And so that's just one effect. All right. That amount of pitch shift, you can tie that to a CV. You can shift up, you can shift down. You can quantize it. You cannot quantize it. We have voltage controlled wet and dry mixing for every effect. Okay. Something else none of these old effects did. You had wet dry as one knob on the front. Well, we got independent left and right, and both can be voltage controlled. All right. Something else you've never seen before. All right. And so to me, although that demo is kind of subtle and it's on a flute, unless you're in a Jethro Tull or somebody, or maybe Hocus Pocus by Focus, who cares about flutes? But it proves a point. You've never heard that kind of clean pitch shifting before in real time.
All right, now I want to play this one, because I think this one is actually really interesting. So this is the pitch shifter vocal. Okay, so let me see if I can click this. So this is all directly from the SoundCloud page, which, to be honest, I can go to the synthesis technology page, scroll down, and the demos are here too. They might actually work fine from here now, because I think I fixed my issue.
Well, the advantage of going to my demo page is that I've grouped the demos by function.
Okay.
So all the spectral effects are together. Then I have spectral delay, spectral crusher, which I want to talk about.
Well, pitch shifter is what I want to show right now. So I'm going to show that. And this is there's something interesting about this. So I'm going to play it first.
Oh, it's going to be true. Ba-da-dee. Ba-da-dee-do, ba-ma-ma-na-ma-no-ma-no-ma-no, ba-ba-ya-la-la-la-da-da, baby, 'cause it's gonna be true. Oh, it's gonna be true. Yes, it's gonna be true, 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 true.
Right, so
hold on. Before you get into it, I just want to say, so here's the thing about that I find interesting from my side of things when I first listened to it. Usually when you hear these pitch shifted sounds like this, you hear like a phase difference, right? There's this slight like blurring effect that tends to happen. And if you really go to the page and listen to it yourself, you don't hear any blurring. Do you know what I'm talking about, Paul?
Yeah.
I was pretty surprised by that.
Okay, so now once you go back and just pull the page up, don't have to play the demo, just pull that. Go back to the demo page. All right, notice that it says time domain effect. So this pitch shifter is not the same algorithm. It's not the same code as the flute. The flute is a spectral pitch shifter, okay, because it's in the spectral effects section. And if you read under the three flutes, keep going, See, frequency domain. And if you read under there, what does it say? You just scroll past it.
Did I?
Yeah.
Hold on. Spectral.
Okay, go down. Okay, keep no spectral.
So that's Spectral.
Bongos, right there. Just keep going down. Go down.
I was gonna say, I didn't think I passed it.
I'm going saying down. No.
There we are. Multi-effect demos.
No. There's a picture of a flute, Ken. Look for a picture of a flute.
How dare you?
What?
There it is. Right here.
Well, now what does it say underneath it? Underneath.
Spectral delay.
Thank you.
There we go.
All right. So, geez. So
Paul's gonna reprimand me. I'm sorry.
Okay. My point being that if you go to this page versus my SoundCloud, you get more information. I'll tell you more information about what effect is used, how it's used, where the knobs are set, how much feedback I used, how much delay I used, things like that. Okay, so that's why I encourage you to go to this page, not the SoundCloud page, so you can get some more information and find things easier. Also, when I add demos, and I usually add demos on the weekends, I have about 15 more demos to add.
Are you doing all the demos at this point?
I'm doing none of the demos at this point.
Okay.
Because I have no musical talent whatsoever.
I've heard that rumor.
Well, it's not a rumor, it's a fact. So I put the newest demos first in these little listings. So if you look, this is the first listing under spectral delay. But if I have another spectral delay, I'm going to put it above the flute delay. Does it make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So now you can go here. Whereas SoundCloud, you just have to see like, when did he post? I guess, there's one way to say it must be new because he posted these. You can sort by posting date, but these are more organized. And so I encourage people to go here and spend some time and read underneath each little SoundCloud image about what we're actually doing in this algorithm, sort of a thing. So to get back to your point, if you scroll back up to the time domain effect where it says pitch shifting, this is the old Eventide harmonizer pitch shifter algorithm where we have read and write buffers. Okay, if you listen to stop. If you listen to this very carefully, you're going to hear some amplitude modulation that's around 6 hertz. Wah 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 wah.
Which one are you talking about? Are you talking about on the pitch shifter vocal?
That one right there, the one that you played.
Okay.
This one. If you rewind it, let's do it again. That's the original.
Gonna be true.
Okay. Okay. Did you hear that? Gonna be true.
Yeah.
All right. That is the classic, we call it an artifact of the Eventide harmonizer algorithm. That is when the read and write pointers cross each other in the buffer. And if you don't want to get a horrible glitch, okay, then you have to do a fade in and fade out. All right. You do a splice, you do a fade in and fade out. You can do linear, equal power, log, anti-log, secret sauce, whatever.
Oh, I like secret sauce. That's where the good stuff is.
And so there's engineers at Eventide whose entire career is based on writing splicing algorithms that sound okay. Mm-hmm. Right? And so we had to write our own splice algorithm too. But we wrote ours a little differently. We wrote ours as a granular tool with a chaos. So we have variable width splicing that you can set in with the knobs, and it's going to be source dependent. Okay. There's no universal setting that sounds good. Depends on what's coming in and how much you're shifting. But you can sit there and manually by ear tune that out or make it as minimum, or you can purposely make it go all you want. Okay. Something you could not do in Eventide because they fixed it for you. They go, we think this is good for you, so here you go. We said, let's make it variable. Okay, so you're going to hear that modulation when you use that algorithm. When you go to the spectral delay or the spectral pitch shifter, you're not going to hear that modulation. Okay, so why do we have both? Because some people like it and some people don't. Okay, did you even notice that modulation until I pointed it out?
No,
Okay,
I'm
there you go.
just letting you know.
Because some people who have heard the Eventide harmonizer for the last 35 years, they hear that amplitude modulation. They're so used to it that if you take it away, they go, "You broke it. You broke it. It's not the same. It's not as good. You broke it." And
so you bring up a couple of interesting points, and I'm going to get to I'm going to cover the points, and I'm going to cover the questions in the chat as well. So, who is writing these algorithms, and also, most multi-effect units. I'm not even saying Eurorack. I'm saying guitar pedal, whatever. Most of them are, like you said way earlier in this, because we talked about the FV, but in general, most multi-effects, let's be honest, are not from scratch, right? Like most companies are not creating effects from scratch. Who is creating these?
Well, okay, so my DSP partner who's on the chat list is Eric Brombaugh, and we've been working together since the E340 cloud generator, which came out in February of 2010. Okay, he's a full-time DSP coder. This is a hobby for him for doing this. I mean, he does other things besides coding for me. He has coded for other Eurorack manufacturers. Okay, but he has a day job which has nothing to do with what we're doing whatsoever. And I'll just leave it at that. People keep giving you money, and I want half of it. I want half of it.
Well, actually, I'll be totally transparent here. So just to be transparent, and I probably shouldn't be because I don't know how this is going to affect the situation. I'll just say this. This channel, this stream setup does cost money monthly. And it's not an insignificant amount, but it's both Corey and I from Beat People, which is my other show. We share this together. So that money essentially is paying for us to continue month to month.
Corey can pay. I'll talk for 10 hours now. For every dollar you pledge.
That's right. Actually, the more money you donate,
and if
the more I can dig into Paul's bullshit.
Donate $2, I'll take an hour off. Okay.
That's right.
So back to your question. How do we decide? Okay. Well, we went out and I talked to some musicians. Okay. So who are the musicians I talked to? That's okay. People want to know. Well, the one I talked to, number one, is someone who I admire. He's been a customer since MOTM days, ambient musician Robert Rich. Okay. Who's
kind of well known in the modular community. He did a show recently in Philly, semi recently, and it was well attended, and I heard nothing but great things. But yeah, very, very skilled. So I recommend checking out his music.
Right. So Robert Rich is what we call an ambient musician. He probably hates that. He's probably typing furiously right now. But if you know Steve Roach, he's the #1 selling ambient musician. He and Robert Rich did a couple of albums together. Robert's done his own things. The thing I like about Robert is he wants every album to be different from any other album he's done before.
I heard that ambient is new rap. So
he doesn't want to repeat himself. So just go to robertrich.com. You can hear his stuff. A lot of it is modular. Some of it's acoustic. He makes his own flutes out of PVC pipe from Home Depot, which I just don't even think that's possible, but he does. But he has, to me, the best ear that I know in the recording industry.
No, I know that he also did the waveforms that were in the E350. Like he helped put that together, right?
Yeah.
Which I highly respect that sort of work because I've been involved in that kind of thing, and it does take a certain sort of ear to understand musicality of like how a waveform affects the waveform next to it and that sort of thing.
Right. And so I'm just checking to see how many people left, and I said pay money. Only 5 people left. Yeah, but by the way, this is all going to be saved. You can listen to it later when you're like you actually have to do stuff or you're Patriot or something.
Driving is when I really like people to
right.
listen.
Driving or
Like, I love seeing people just fall asleep and just hit the side rails and then be like, "Oh, okay,
right.
I need to test it."
So what we did is we all kind of got together, which is Robert and myself and Eric, and said we have to start somewhere. What should we have as a core? And Robert, who is really good about detailing stuff he wants, he started typing in these very long, detailed emails. And like, here's what I want, but here's what's missing. And Robert's, again, he's my number one pushing force about missing, new, different, not the same, never heard before. Of course, never heard before is all of our bugaboos. Just making a hit record with the beat, we just never heard before. Come on. How hard can it be, right? So how hard can it be to make a brand new algorithm that no one's ever heard before? Okay, turns out it's pretty hard, okay? But what you can do is you can take the basic function and we can add our own twist to it because we have this new hardware now that wasn't then, okay? So even though Eventide, let's look at something like an H3000 or a DSP 7000. When they came out, people were stunned. It was magic. It was voodoo. Look at the Marshall 502 time modulator. It's this mythical thing. We don't know what's in there. We don't even know what's in there.
That's so funny because I've heard people say that.
We don't even know what's in there. And if you tell us what's in there, we hate you because it's supposed to be a secret. So don't believe Stephen St. Croix. He spent his whole life hiding this design. I'm like, well, I'll tell you exactly what it is. They go, shut up. Okay, so there's a lot of, in the musical industry, we all know, there's a lot of aura and legend and myth and the attachment emotionally to pieces of hardware, which to me are bill of materials from Mouser and DigiKey. Okay, I'm like, why are you emotionally attached to this guitar pedal? It's got blah, 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 blah. And I go, it's mythical, it's magical. If you put 7-volt batteries in it, Stevie Ray Vaughan comes out, but only if the op amps were made on a Tuesday by Glenda from Oxnard.
That's why Electro Harmonix has their own batteries. You know that, right?
That's Stevie Ray Vaughan. Okay. And there's a lot of that attachment. Okay. And I understand that attachment because I used to have attachment to Moog modulars. Okay. Growing up, they were like this mythical beast. And I bought one and I went, okay, fine. And so I understand that. And so what we really try to do in these algorithms is we listen to the old equipment. We listen to the people who recorded for 20 years. Part of their livelihood is based on using this equipment and saying, what is missing? What can they not do? What would you add? Here's a blank sheet of paper. Now, we can't do everything you ask, okay? But we can try. We can try. And so we want the people, so when you do a Kickstarter, let's talk about Kickstarter again.
I'm gonna ask. You did it. You did it. So I'm asking, how do you feel about the Electro Harmonix 9-volt battery? And then if you read the overview,
well, the
9-volt battery is a classic carbon zinc type that has a higher internal resistance than alkaline battery. This reduces circuit loading, especially in vintage pedals, to provide the best tone and dynamics.
Well, I think it's the equivalent of saying, here's a pair of $6,000 RCA cables, but let's not go there. By the way, when you brought that page up, my double E degree just exploded and caught fire on the wall.
I had to do it. I'm sorry. I had to do it because that just instantly jumped.
Here's what's interesting. The first part of that sentence is 100% correct. Carbon, zinc batteries do have a higher internal resistance than an alkaline battery. The question is how much? And it's probably like 4 ohms difference. And if you have a 4 ohm resistance, why can't you just take a 4 ohm resistor and stick it in with an alkaline battery and get the same thing? And the answer is because it's not the same, because same doesn't mean the same. It's not the same, so it's not the same. It's not going to sound the same. Same.
Yeah.
Okay, so where were we? So,
but electrons do the same goddamn thing.
Well, anyway, let's just say this, that we know that when we have this unit out in the field and people listen to the demos, they're going to automatically mentally compare it to the effects they've heard in the past. Okay. And for example, we have a Lexicon primetime. If you know what a Lexicon primetime delay is, a T93, T95, T97, I think the models were. There's a dual tap delay with different sample rates, and you can play them backwards and forwards, and you could have prime time ratios, which were prime numbers like 17 over 23, okay, ratios between the two delays. When they were locked in a prime time ratio, an LED came on, and people thought that was great, okay? And so we have an algorithm now, and one of my beta testers says, well, I have one, and it doesn't sound the same. It doesn't sound the same. And I'm like, okay, is it close? It's not the same. There's that word again, same. So what we're going to try to do is make it as close as we can, and it may not be exactly the same because the other ones were so bad, it's hard to make them that bad again, okay? And in the case of Lexicon Primetime, they had to have these elliptical filters and the feedback loops, and it's hard to get all that phase information in an elliptical filter translated into a digital filter, and so the cancellation is not going to sound the same. But you know what? The algorithm is the same. We can still do the prime time delay. We can still do it. And if you A/B them, there may be a slight difference. My response is, well, then go buy one. They're about $900 on Reverb. Just go buy one if you want the algorithm, but that's all it's going to do. If you buy mine for $550, it does that almost the same, not exactly the same, but it's going to do it and 31 other ones. And so we know that going in, and there's going to be some pushback, and the pushback is the same. That's an all MI stuff when you're trying to compare.
Okay. So moving past like emulating old crap, right? Because that's essentially what it comes down to.
We're emulating old crap, but what we're trying to focus on is the new crap.
Well, that's what I want to get to. So hold on. Let me press the issue with you about some things that I'm curious about because I haven't had it underhand yet, right? So there's a few things that I personally find super useful, and as like producing music, I'm going to find super useful. So one of the things would be that I spoke to you earlier about tape delays and that sort of thing. Now we had spoken, this is off air, we had spoken about the difference between clean and distorted tape delay emulation, that sort of thing.
Right.
So what I want to talk to you about is what the E520's role will be in not just doing really interesting DSP effects and that sort of thing, where you can cleanly pitch shift, which is amazing in its own right. But what I want to get to is like things like saturation, distortion, those sorts of sounds. Are you emulating those, and how do you feel about that sort of emulation?
The answer is yes. So I have a current product now called the E580 Mini Delay that's been in Eurorack for
quite a while,
about 5 years, I think, 5 or 6 years. And it has a switch that says clean, BBD, or tape. Okay. And so clean is just what it says, it's clean. BBD, what it means is you have a low pass filter that's based on your sample rate, which is how a BBD works, okay? The longer you clock it, the noisier and lower hi-fi it gets, right? And so we do that. And also in the tape mode, we emulate a little bit of saturation, but it's more the wow and flutter. But the difference in the 580 is that those are fixed parameters and they're not voltage controlled. It's what we call a compromise. So we pick stuff in there that you could hear. Some people say the wow and flutter on the tape is a little bit over the top. Okay. But when I did it, I had a Roland RE505 pedal, which is the digital version of the RE201 Space Echo.
I have one in the back over there.
Right. And I took that sucker apart and I stuck it on my $45,000 audio precision analyzer. And I said, here's what the knobs do. And I turned the knobs on the RE505 until you could hear it go pretty good. And I stopped it and I took FFTs of that, and that's what we put in there. Okay. The
So
difference
you're
is,
saying you emulated that accurately.
right, but fixed. One preset. It had one warble, and the BBD, had one kind of noise. All right. The 520, we don't do that. It's completely voltage controlled. So when you go into so could you please bring up the main 520 page, not the demo page, but the main 520?
For you, I can do that. So let me bring that into the stream. For anybody else, I'd have been like, don't tell me what to do. All right. So here's the main page. Where do you want me to go?
Okay, scroll down. I'll talk about the effects. Keep going. We'll go down. Audio demos. Keep going. Time. Now you're in the demo page. I don't want the demo page. I want 520. You're.com/520.
All right, hold on. I'm going to go back here, and then we can go straight to here, right?
Right. Right. Scroll down. It starts listing all the algorithms. Scroll down. Keep going. Basic features. Scroll down. Stop right there. Oh, you went too far. See where it says resampling mini delay. All right. So the E580 is the E580 resampling mini delay. That's the module you can buy today that has these fixed parameters. We have the E580 algorithm implemented in the 520, but we've made everything that we fixed before completely variable. So people who have a 520, who like how the sound of the 520, they know how to use the 520. They can either keep it or sell it on the market next year when they buy. I'm sorry, I keep saying 520. The 580. When they buy if you have a 580 resampling mini delay, and you're afraid you'll lose it if you buy a 520, the answer is no. We can do everything that the 580 can currently do, but we made those parameters variable for you. We've added a few more features. So if you like your 580, the other thing we did is the 560. So if you scroll down a little bit, we'll say, keep going. There's the prime time. Keep going.
Deflector shield, right?
Deflector shield. That's my E560 deflector shield. That is a bode frequency shifter done in DSP. It's not a pitch shifter. It's a frequency shifter. And what we did different in that is
can you explain the difference between a pitch shifter and a frequency shifter?
As a pitch shifter is pitching the frequency to a certain chromatic interval. Okay. So a pitch shifter is a frequency shifter, but it's going to hit on pitch.
Chromatic interval.
Right. But a frequency shifter, which is done a little bit differently, is just going to shift it in a number of hertz. So it's like, I'm going to take this input and shift it 14.3 hertz. Well, 14.3 hertz is any kind of musical interval. It's really nothing. And so
but it can make things like a synthesizer saw wave sound fat.
Right. It can do a lot of different things, but it's a different effect. So, but it's generally done with sine waves. Sine waves in, sine waves out. That's like the bode frequency shifter. What we did on the deflector shield is that the modulation doesn't have to be a sine wave like it is in a bode. We can make it any wave shape we want. And so we have a morphing carrier in the 560. And so you can get all kinds of weird, very inharmonic, metallic, almost ring modulator effects. We put that again. If you have a 560 and you love your 560, then you can still buy a 520 and you get everything in the 560 plus more.
So you're saying, so hold on. Let me ask you a more ugly question about that.
Mm-hmm.
If I buy a 520, do I have zero need to buy a deflector shield?
It's all in there. Now the answer is
there's no reason for me to buy that, right?
Okay. Now so ask me another question. Ask me the same question a different way.
Okay. So if I have if I have a deflector shield, should I sell it and get this?
Okay, but when is this coming out?
In like May of next year.
If you have a deflector shield, when should you sell your deflector shield?
Probably like April.
Okay. There's no reason to go off and ditch your deflector shield now. Okay. How wide is a deflector shield? It's 16H, 16 HP?
Sure.
How wide is this? 48
But I'm putting this thing in a pod anyway. So
no. So here's what I wanted you to ask. Okay. the E340 and the E350 are no longer made. Why? Because I have the E352 Cloud Terrarium. And everything which is in the E340 and in the E350 and more, much more, is in the E352. Therefore, come on, say it. Therefore, what?
I'll be honest with you. So hold on. Before you even get to that, I'm going to go ahead and say it because you told me about this, and I think about it constantly. I can sell my E350 back to you at a discount.
Yes, and you can get an E350 too.
I think about it all the damn. I'm a cheapskate. I'll be the first person to tell you I'm a cheapskate.
Right, well, you've only got $30 in this feed, so.
But holy crap! Like that's really cool.
Okay, so here's what I'm trying to get you to say. Okay, is that the E520 Hyperion at some point next year, some point, I didn't say when, some point next year, will replace both the E560 and the E580, which will go obsolete. Okay? So this time next year, the E560 and the E580 will have been discontinued.
Okay.
And replaced by the E520. A year from now. Not
sure.
Tomorrow. Not because I still have orders on the books for it.
Do you fear that you're stopping sales of your own product by saying that?
That's called the Osborne effect, but the trouble is I have orders on the books. I want to ship those orders because those orders are NCNR to my dealers, and they're going to take this thing. There's still a high demand because there's people that have studio cases, people that have traveling cases. There's people who want to put this in.
There's still cool modules either way. Like
right. there's people who want to put the 520 in a skiff and leave it in the studio.
This thing, like you said, this thing is far larger.
And there's people that want to put the 560 because a 560 and a 580 side by side is still one third the space of a 520. Okay. And that's important to some people. So it's not an immediate need, but I will tell people right now, if they haven't figured it out yet, that by this time next year, by November of next year, there's not going to be a 560 and a 580 for sale. There's only going to be 520s for sale.
So let me, all right, let's get into some other aspects of this thing.
So,
right?
Do we have some comments? Let me go just for one.
We do. So we've got some comments about the balanced inputs. We had that earlier.
I was going to address that. Okay, so
balanced I/O.
Right. So people ask me, well, if this is so great, I think this came from JL Rice, but other people, if this thing is so cool for being on a desktop, why doesn't it have, look at all that space. You could put XLR, you could put ADAT light pipe, you could put Thunderbolt, you could put USB, blah, 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 blah.
Well, hold on. We didn't actually, before we even get, I'm cutting you off now because I realized we didn't get to something. And thank you, Vlad and Mur, for commenting. We didn't get to the topic of chaining effects.
Okay, someone said we'll do one effect at a time. So let's talk about that. Okay, so how many people, raise your hand if you had an Ensoniq DP4 Plus, where you could say, I want this followed by that, followed by this, followed by that, followed by that. Okay, I had one.
That was their rack mount effects unit, right?
Right, Ensoniq. And so you could sit there. And
I love Ensoniq stuff, but I didn't have it.
And I think TC Electronics had one at one time. I don't know if the Fireworks lets you do that or not, where you could say, I want a phaser followed by a reverb, followed by a flanger, followed by this, followed by that. And then, when Frog and a Blender comes out at the end. So can we do that? The answer is no. No. And the reason is because we don't want to spend a year, and I don't have a staff of 10 programmers like TC Electronics had. I have Eric. And I don't want to spend a year. And if you think it takes less than a year, you've never done it before, so be quiet. I don't want to spend a year to do that and lose sales for a year. Because one thing that if you have a 520, an E352, and you have an E370, you love that little micro SD card slot right there. Because what that means is when you bought this 3 or 4 years ago, with our updates, it's completely different. It's a lot better than it was when you bought it. Okay. So at launch, there's not going to be user programmable selected chain effects. There is on the Kickstarter, and I'm sorry that you can't go to the Kickstarter page and look at what's offered because it just won't let me. Okay. I don't know why, but it just has a banner. There's a stretch goal, and one of the stretch goals, besides the LFO and the CV pool matrix routing, is we're going to have some presets, and we're going to let you, if you pledge for a unit, you get a vote, okay? Because I'm not buying any. Mine are all free. Free, I say. But if you buy a unit and you want to have a flanger followed by the shimmer reverb as a chain effect, okay, that's going to be a preset effect. You can't swap them. It's going to be this effect is this followed by that. Okay, but the good news is they're going to be independent on left and right channels. Didn't see that coming, did you? No, you didn't. So you can have one algorithm chain on left, another different algorithm chain on right. But you have to get that stretch goal. And those chains are going to be fixed. We're not going to have a library where you can drop and drag and hook little arrows together and do all this stuff. And the reason is, it's not because it takes a year of code. It's how do you remap all of the buttons? And how do you remap those 4 control voltages? Do I have 1 for that one and 2 for that one? Do I have 2 and 2? How do I switch it up? Well, if you have an algorithm that uses all 4 when it's not chained, how are you supposed to put it in a chain and still use all 4 if they both want to have 4? This one has 4, that one has 4. They're chained. Well, I don't have 8. I still have the 4. Then I have the other left and right channels.
I could answer that for you, but I'm guessing you want me to do that off the air.
Well, you can try, and I'll probably slap you. But I'm just saying is, people say, you know what I hate about your modules, Paul? There's lots of menu diving. Well, we don't like menu diving where I come from.
Menu diving is a subjective term that I've learned. And I will say this. As far as menu diving is concerned, there's a difference between a one-button press to get to where you want and a true menu dive. Okay?
Right. So like Vlad said, we want a PC editor. No, you don't want a PC editor. You want a PC Max, Linux, Commodore, and Amiga editor. That's 2 years of work, okay? And then you have to download it. How are you going to download it? We want a USB port. Oh, why don't you just do Wi-Fi? Okay. No, see, the thing just blows up, and this is how people...
You're talking about feature bloat at this point, and,
right. And so what I'm saying is...
Because you're ranting now against yourself. So
what I'm saying is here.
Here's what I will say. There is absolutely a situation where you could have a chain of effects where you could swap between effects and then your controls become just that effect. I will say that. However, if you choose to have it be extremely good at one task at one time, there's nothing wrong with that. I feel like people get scared to say, look, we're choosing to be good at a single task at a time. There's nothing wrong with that. There's really not.
Well, all I'm saying is, think about this. If you're a 352 user or an E370 user, okay, both of these modules are 2 and 3 years old. Ask yourself this question. Does the module today do anything close to what it did when it came out? The answer is nope. Nope.
How many updates do you feel like you had for the E352?
Say again?
How many updates have you had for the E352?
3.
And what have you added since release? just to give an idea to the user.
Morphing cloud mode, chord mode, detune mode, sample player mode.
That's significant. Those are significant modes.
Right. And what I'm saying is, and this is again, why were we doing a Kickstarter? Because I'm not naive. Okay. I'm not naive. I'm many things, crazy, but I'm not naive. I know that everybody has their favorite effects. Okay. Neutron biphase, Selena chorus, RE505, EMT plate reverb. Shut up about reverb. All this kind of stuff. I want that. You have all this stuff, but I want that. And I'm saying, well, if you want to voice, if you want to vote, if you want to influence us what to put in it, this is how you do it. Okay. I don't want to just throw this over the wall and say, be done. Okay. Remember when I said this thing holds 32 presets?
Mm-hmm.
When I ship it in May, is it going to have 32 preset slots all filled up? No. It'll probably have 22, 23. Why not all of them? Because those are going to be filled up as time goes on, as time goes on, as time goes on. Something else to think about. I'm going to brag on my coder, Eric. And no, he's not for hire. And no, that's not his real name.
You are so
Is that
you're so protective of him. Right. Fair enough.
Eric just tripled his rate, by the way, while he was typing. I want you to go listen to those demos. I want everyone to listen to those demos and realize that is 12 weeks of Eric's work. Not 12 months, not 12 years. That's what Eric has been able to do in 12 weeks. And we're not shipping this thing until the end of May. What do you think Eric's going to do between tomorrow and the end of May? Okay, if he's done this much so far, what's he going to do by the end of May based on your suggestions? And you only get a vote if you buy one. So if you want to vote, go get one at Kickstarter. And then what's going to happen a year from now? What's going to happen 2 years from now? And if you don't have an idea, find someone with an E352 or E370 and say, what has synth-tech done to keep this investment? Because it's a $550 to a $700 investment, depending on where you live and what if you buy it in a pod or not. Okay. We're not going to leave you hanging, but if you buy a spin part, you're only going to get spin stuff. Okay. You buy an E520, you have our commitment that we're going to keep improving this over and over and over. Okay. I'm surprised. Has anybody asked, can we load algorithms off of the micro SD card? In other words, can we have sets of algorithms? Can we say, well, there's a bank of 32,
came to my head,
load in 32? Maybe.
The first thought that came to my head is like distortion and like wavetable lookups, where you can do distortions based on importing a wavetable from your synth, because you have a software for editing wavetables. So right. I'm like, well, can I use that to be a distortion algorithm for this?
That's been discussed, and the trouble is it's very hard to actually do that and have anything good come out, because it's the same thing as like, if I just take a pen and can I draw a violin? I'm going to draw a violin. No, if you draw it and wave at it, instead of using the tools, if you just try to draw it, it goes, and if you say, well, I'm going to draw something different, I'm going to draw it even again. Okay, you can't draw a violin. Okay, and just like that, you can't.
Sounds to me like Wave Edit needs slope tools.
Well, no, we have like 14 tools.
Okay.
Without drawing. I'm talking about drawing. And so when you say want to import wavetables for distortion, I'm saying if you import 1,000 wavetables, 999 are going to go, and that's it.
You do realize that like it's not up to you, because you just said like other people can vote on this stuff. People are going to vote for what I just said.
Right. So I'm saying is if you want me to do it, you got to show me. I want you to give me that wavetable that causes that nice distortion, and not say, well, I don't know. I'm hoping you do it for me.
I'll send you a couple.
Okay, you send me a couple.
I will.
So what is this not? So let's talk about for a sample, because you brought something up. What is the E520 not going to do?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear, Paul.
All right. It is not going after reverb. Okay.
But you have a reverb.
We have a very specific type of reverb effect called shimmer, okay, which was an old term used by Brian Eno. It's used a lot by Steve Roach.
It's a pitch shifting reverb.
It's a reverb that has a granular pitch shifter in the reflections.
Okay.
There's a Valhalla DSP card called shimmer. It's kind of a generic term, okay? It's not a trademark. It's just a term called shimmer that you can get for the ZDSP card from TipTop. There's a shimmer in that, okay? So we have a shimmer too, but it's a lot fancier than those other shimmers, and it's voltage controlled and not limited to what the spin part can do, okay? But it has a room size. It's a large room. You can modulate it with an LFO if you want. It won't break. You can't modulate it very fast, okay? But does it sound like in Lexicon 480? No. Are we going to spend years? I mean, how many engineers at Lexicon and Eventide, how many man years are spent in their reverb algorithms?
Do you want me to tell you honestly?
Thousands, tens of thousands of
man hours. I can tell you exactly. Do you want to know?
Sure.
I was joking. I don't really know.
You don't know. You have a crap. You can even name one engineer there. John DeTaro. Look him up. John DeTaro, who spent his entire career. Richard Factor. Okay. John DeTaro and Richard Factor's, their entire career, their entire livelihood, their families, their children, their grandchildren are based on keeping those reverb algorithms a secret. And they've done a pretty good job. Okay. So we're not going to spend all of our time and effort trying to out Lexicon. What we're going to do is say, Lexicon doesn't have the Spectral Crusher algorithm. So if you want to, let's do that. So Ken, please pull up the demo page and let's listen to a Spectral Crusher, which is a synth-tech unique algorithm. So let's get off of the main page and go scroll up and it says demos are here. Well, no.
Give me a second, because I'm half I'm half dealing with the fact that my my youngin is upstairs.
All right.
Which honestly is not, it's not even a pitch shifter version of me. It's just a slightly higher tuned version of me that is insane. It has a high level of distortion and chaos.
Right. So let's scroll down here under Spectral Effects.
Okay, hold on.
Keep going. Spectral
Effect demos.
All right, so there's the time machine. Keep going. Spectral time machine. Look under the thing. Spectral Crusher.
Which one am I looking for?
Spectral. Let's stop.
Well, you gotta tell me what I'm looking for.
Can you read? Spectral Crusher solo sample.
I got this. Yeah, but you gotta say it with your mouth.
Okay. So here's the clean cello. So you can tell it's going to be dry up to that little point. Okay, so you can tell it's dry and see where it dips down in the middle, then it goes to effect. All right, so you can speed up to the effect. You've heard the dry.
Here we go.
Here we go. Okay, so in that effect, if you're under it, it says we're it says, in the compression mode. So what we do in the FFT is the FFT will accurately break that cello sample up into those frequency bands and tell us within 0.005% accuracy how much frequency content is in there. We go, that's great, but we don't want the actual frequency content. We're going to compress that down just like a level amplifier or a studio compressor works on amplitude. We're going to set thresholds just like you have on think of a studio compressor. You have a threshold setting, you have an attack and release setting, you have a gain makeup setting.
Is that bubbling setting the phase blur? There's kind of like a bubbling sound to it.
Okay, we'll get that in a second. It's because phase blur is we put in everything. So what we do on the Spectral Crusher is we have different ways to take the correct and accurate frequency information and crush them down in different ways so that the frequency that comes out is not perfect on purpose. So you can tell it's a cello, but it sounds like the cello from Stranger Things. It's got this low frequency growling weirdness. And then we have what we call a phase blur effect, which means that we have blending between adjacent bins on purpose. Hang on. Just a second, my wife wants to use my postal scale. All right, wife is using the postal scale. And so in our Spectral Crusher algorithm, and if you go to our main page where you can download the PDF of all of the different algorithms and what the settings are, under the Spectral Crusher, there's at least 6 or 7, we may go up to 10 or 12 different ways to crush that spectrum to get different effects. Okay, that's never been done before. It's unique to us. And if you go back, let's do another Spectral Crusher.
Well, that's what I was about to say. You've got multiple spectral crushings on here. So like, can I do the black hole one?
Right. So if you look under Spectral Crusher, it says it has the pitch shifting built in. Okay. So let's say that one.
So you can see what they're doing if you read down here.
That's exactly correct. I'm not hearing it too soft. It's kind of low volume. Can people hear that okay?
I think people can probably hear it. Give it a second. It's a lower volume demo anyway.
Well, okay, let's stop that one. Let's do the one that says Spectral Crusher, keep going up. There's one on drums. Keep going above the
right here, the 808.
Yeah, let's try that one. Something close to your heart. That's obviously the dry. Here we go. So, and that one, you were able to hear all the different pitch shifting effects and the compression. Sorry, my wife is mad at me because I told her, just take the scale. But you can also hear that effect. If you see the one, see where it says 520 SC in the name, that stands for Spectral Crusher. Okay.
Give me 1 second. The demo page.
Well, you're on it.
No. I'm telling people. I'm telling people in the chat to go there. Just learn to trust me. Which one?
Okay, I'm saying all the ones that say SC in the title.
Yep.
Oddly enough, strangely enough, stands for Spectral Crusher.
How could you?
Okay, so let's scroll down. Let's see how many spectral. Okay, let's go up a little bit. Let's do one more.
Disappearing?
Now, let me talk about this first. So what this is going to be, it's a DigiCat source, and as the sample goes on, we crush it more and more and more. That's why we call it disappearing. Okay, so let's see what this one sounds like.
All right, hold on. I'm going to turn up my volume a little bit so Let me adjust my body. Ugh. Let's see what happens here. Which one was it again? Disappearing?
Yeah. This is all dry. Okay. All right, now we're going. Okay, that's fine. It's just kind of, so you can hear as time goes on, it's almost like different harmonics and different frequencies just disappear. And that's what we can do with these FFT effects, is that we can basically put a bandpass or a notch filter on a 43 hertz window anywhere in your spectrum, and we can boost it up to 0 dB, or we can completely get rid of it down to minus 96 dB, or anything in between. We can take the spectrum and we can apply a waveform to it. We can take the spectrum and apply an envelope to it. We can apply an LFO to it. And these kinds of spectral effects were not possible back when Eventide and Lexicon were doing reverbs and delays. They just were not possible. And so that's why I encourage people to do that. Now, the other thing that we can do that's really interesting is if we go up to time delay, because I know I'm running out. My wife is giving me dirty looks.
Fair enough. Me too.
Let's go up to let's go up to time delay.
Hold on. Is it up?
It's up.
Shimmer reverb.
Okay. So go down a little bit where it says stereo reversing delay.
Give me 1 second.
Pass it. Keep
you
going.
said I passed it?
Right there. Okay. So before you play it, this is Robert Rich speaking, and this is what people used to call frippertronics, okay, which is you have two tape recorders separated by 30 feet down a hallway with mic stands, and you loop the tape from the record head on the first tape recorder to the playback head on the second one, but you have enough tape slack where you can record and play back at different speeds, and you have two people standing in the hallway with hand signals, and they can forward and reverse the tape, okay? That's what we used to call frippertronics. And so we can do that effect exactly. We can shift the pitch chromatically or not. We can go forward and reverse. We can do tap tempo. This is all, again, a delay effect, but it's something that was very difficult to do years ago, but now we can do it. So let's hear that one. Stereo reversing delay.
I don't know if I'm going to play it.
Oh, if you're not, I'm not going to give you any more money.
There we go.
Waiting. He killed it.
Stereo reversing delay.
This demonstration.
You
are listening to a prototype of the synthesis technology E520 Hyperion processor. For this demonstration, my voice is passing through
the stereo reversing delay.
This demonstration.
I don't know if it's going to be as stereo in the live stream, so please go to the site and check the demo.
Stereo 5 You are listening to a prototype of synthesis technology. You are reversing to prototype
Okay, that's pretty good. I think people got the idea of what the kind of capability of that algorithm.
Yeah, I mean the first so as a outside of Eurorack usage, the first thing that comes to my mind with that is simply the fact that if you can control the speed of the sound via an offset, right?
Mhm.
You could do that just like a turntable.
Yeah,
So you could
it's a
essentially
control.
scratch real-time vocals
Yes.
by using that.
Yes, it's all voltage controlled.
Yeah, I definitely could have a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, everything you heard is voltage
We
controlled.
have been on the air for about 2 hours now, right? So
I guess I want to say if anybody has any questions they want to type.
yeah, if you
Yeah,
want to ask a
comments.
quick question, please type it. So do we
Well,
know the
okay,
price
I
for
never-
it
I
that
never-
will be unveiled with the Kickstarter page?
I never fairly finished the line in and out question. So why don't I offer a box that's more studio friendly? Okay. Like take this pod and put line in and out, TRS balanced in and out, XLR, whatever. And the answer is I wanted to keep the price under $600 retail. And I can't do it under $600 retail and do a good job hooking it up to a studio. In fact, to do a proper job of doing, balanced in and out, even non-transformer, if you use the good high-end DAT chips with the high CMRR, with the high OPA op amps on a good quiet low noise circuitry, you're going to add another $200. If you want to have XLRs on balanced with transformers, you're going to add $500. If you want to have word clock, someone asked me about AES EBU word clock and all that kind of stuff. Now we're up to $1,000. And I just don't want to have an initial product that cost $1,000. I did that with the E370. I wanted this to be under $600 in your hands delivered. And I can't do that and have all the studio I/O. Now, certainly you can buy this unit and use a bigger skiff than the 4 millisecond 48 powered pod. You can use a make noise 102 space skiff. I use a company called L1. That's the letter L as in Larry, the number 1, L1. And he makes wonderful line in and out modules. Extremely low noise. Couldn't, talk about them in higher terms. If you want to do that, then buy my module, buy the L1 balanced I/O module, hook them together in your own little powered skiff, and you're done. Okay. But to go full studio and I want to have all the stuff in a studio, it's going to be $1,000. Now I'm competing against the Eventide Eclipse or something like that, or maybe some used DSP 7000s or something like that. And I'm not sure where I can play in that market. It's something I can do. I may do it next year. I kind of kid with some people that I'm going to have another version called the Studio 520, not the E520 for Eurorack, but the Studio 520, that maybe it's a 19-inch rack. Someone says, why don't you make it like a Lexicon Lark? Why don't you have a rack thing and a little desktop thing with sliders and a cover thing on it? I said, did you ever price a Lark? They were like $2,500, okay? People said, but they look cool on the desk. They look cool on your desk, okay? And that's
Dude, Paul, if any of us are in music for anything, it is only to look cool. How do you think I got my wife?
Right. I agree. But I agree. So what I'm focusing on is the core of the technology right now. And what I'm going to do, so it's going to wrap up. I'm going to spin this. I'm going to spin my computer around.
We didn't even get to see the breadboard, man. We talked about this beforehand and never got to see it.
See, guess what I'm doing?
Goodness.
Here is the breadboard. Now, what I'm going to do.
That your angle is terrible.
Well, it's because the tape fell. And hang on. Let's do this. All right. Is that okay? Can you see that?
Yeah, it is moderate. Hold on. Let me see what I can do.
I'm gonna have to turn around. I'm gonna do this block.
I'm gonna solo you out so that people.
What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look on the YouTube page. How is the?
Okay.
Okay. Got it.
Yep.
How come it's not
Looks like that breadboard's missing some knobs.
That's because it's a breadboard. What do you think the definition is?
How dare you?
What's the definition of a breadboard? All right, so this is what we have working now. So this is what we call the breadboard. This is what I showed at NobCon. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay, but you had a better angle earlier before the show. I'm disappointed in your
Oh,
mocks.
they're not moving. I'm moving my damn thing. What? The screen's not up. This is weird.
You had it to where the breadboard was much higher. You were supposed to set the computer down lower.
Let's see. Let me try this. Bear with me a second.
The angle was that the webcam was lower than the breadboard.
People would send me money. I could have a good camera.
Well, you know what? People aren't sending money for half-ass built breadboards, okay?
Well, yeah, that's what only cost me about $7,000. So anyway, here we go. Let's try this.
And I agree with Derek. We should be talking pinball.
We can talk pinball for a couple hours.
I'm sure we could, actually.
How's that?
That's coming later on this week. Is
Paul's pinball.
dude? Honestly, yeah. Because once I'm done building my studio, the next thing is I'm building my son's area, and we're purposely building in some pinball area. So
right. So this is the current breadboard. This is what all the demos are done on. This is what we used to. Eric used this to write the software. It's about 14 by 9 inches. It's big on purpose so we can probe around. There's things on there that didn't make it to the final version. That's why there's knobs missing, parts missing, things like that. There's the little Stinker logo for people who remember little Stinker power supplies. They're not dead,
Yep.
just nailed to the perch. So
I really would like to see that eventually come to light.
right, that's another 2 hours. So to wrap up, the purpose of the Kickstarter is to get it from this breadboard stage with the limited number of algorithms that we have. Okay. There's my pinball. Matahari, Flash Gordon, and C-Ray. All Bally because William sucks and I'll fight you if you say differently. Is to get it into this form. That's the Kickstarter. To go from breadboard to finished product, and then to have the finished product that you, the customers, want to have it on day one. Not necessarily the promise of a year from now or 2 years from now, but on day one, do you want a Mutron biphase in there? Or if I give you a choice of a Mutron biphase or a Selena triple chorus, you have to pick one. Which will it be? Is there a plugin that you like? You know, we've had several people say, you should check this out. You should check that out. All right. And we always check them out, but you have to understand again, it's not a quad core i7.
I got a few things that I want to send your way that I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on.
But I'll tell you what, if it's in a freaking guitar pedal, I mean, kick its ass.
No, it's not. And that's why I want to show it to you, is because there's certain things that I've been dying to see in hardware format that no one has done. And I'm like, man, this is amazing. And you, sir, in particular, would be perfect to make it happen.
Yeah.
However, the question is about the user interface and will it work for you? So,
right. And so when people send me people have the last couple months when they hear the demos. And by the way, I'm going to stop here and say, join my Facebook group if you like Facebook. I don't like Facebook, but I'm on it, but I don't have to like it. it's called synth-tech modular, SYNTHTECH space modular. So if you go into Facebook and search synth-tech modular, you send me what's called a join request. That's where you're going to get the new demos, the new information. That's where you can gripe at me and Eric. That's where you can have a vote. But when you have a Kickstarter pledge, what's good about Kickstarter is they have a very good messaging system. So that's my webpage there, my Facebook page. You have a little bit clearer view of what the display actually looks like, by the way, on this shot here. I want your input, okay? I'm not going to do everything everybody wants. Did I mention I have 32 slots, okay? But if you have a favorite plugin, all I ask is before you send it to us, make sure it doesn't have 47 sliders on it. We can't do 47 sliders, okay? We don't have 17 subpages, all right? We have 4. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4 CV inputs. That's all we got. We have independent left and right feedback. We have independent left and right wet dry mixing. And we have 4 CVs. And then internally, we have 4 LFOs. Period. We don't have 27 sliders. Okay, now, just because an algorithm has 27 sliders doesn't mean 25 of them do much of anything, because how much does a slider cost in an app? Nothing. Okay, so you can just put sliders there till the cows come home. All right, so just give it a little bit of thought and say, you know what? Here's a really cool VST. Maybe it's no longer made. For example, if you look at our list, we have what's called a spectral delay. That was Native Instruments had a program with different spelling, spectral delay, that they licensed, and the license is now invalid. It's no longer supported by NI. So we figured out what they did. We don't have their code. We didn't license it, but we're pretty clever. So we figured out what they did, and we did our own version of spectral delay. That's called SD. If you look at the words, it'll say SD. You went too far.
No, I'm just scrolling through so that people can see how much stuff is on the page.
Right, and it's going to go up. So please, I encourage you, even if you don't get an early bird special, so let's talk about the Kickstarter. I'm going to wrap up so I can stay married. I've been married for almost 30 years.
Congrats on that.
So let's just say this. I look forward to the Kickstarter. It starts at 1 p.m. Eastern time, 12 noon Texas time, which will be 10 o'clock in the morning in California and God knows what everywhere else. All right. You have to use a credit card. Okay. No PayPal, no bank drafts. You have to register. If you've never pledged to Kickstarter, then go to Kickstarter before it starts and register your account, and you have to give them your credit card, and it's safe. Okay. Your credit card is not charged until the campaign is funded. Okay. So if the campaign does not fund, all right, then, which I'm pretty sure it will, but let's say it didn't fund, or if you do another Kickstarter that didn't fund, it costs you nothing. Zero. There's no fee. There's no minimal.
When does the Kickstarter go live again?
Friday.
The 15th, right?
November the 15th. 5 days from now. 1 p.m. Eastern time. There's what it says right there. Okay. I'm going to have ads on Matrix Synth and on Synthopia that will get you there. If you just you can go right now to Kickstarter.com and just type in the search box E520 Hyperion. It'll go to the page. You can have an account. Then you can do what's called a watch. You can say, I want to watch this account. 30 minutes before it goes live, you'll start getting pings if you want that. So as you forget, you get busy, you're in a meeting, you're having lunch, okay, you're doing important things besides hanging around for the Kickstarter. It'll tell you. But what people found out on the E370 that wanted to get that early bird price is that they had their finger on the trigger, but when they went to get it, And they said, I want that early bird special, best price. They said, fine, what's your account? And by the time you entered your account and you entered your credit card number and you went back, it was gone. So I'm trying to say that if you haven't ever done a Kickstarter before, don't wait until 30 seconds before. Go enter all your information into the Kickstarter thing, have your account, so when you do pledge, it's seamless. All right. Now let's talk about refunds. Okay. You may have heard that Kickstarter does not give refunds. That is not entirely true. I, as the campaign owner, and we use the word campaign, am not legally obligated, I'll say that again slowly, I am not legally obligated to refund your money if you pledge on Friday and something happens and you want your money back. Okay? Now, will I refund your money? The answer is probably yes. When I did the E370, I had 17 people ask for refunds, and I gave all 17 people their money back. Did they get all of their money back? 100% of it. 15 out of 17 did. The other two just wanted their money back because they wanted to buy a Clouds or something. Something new and shiny came along. So I gave them half their money back. Why wouldn't I give them all their money back? Remember all those pots and knobs that I bought 4 months ago that I've already paid for? Well, I got to pay for them. Okay? But the other 15 people, I gave them all their money back. No questions asked. So it's not going to be a scam. It's not going to be, I can never get my money back. Okay? Am I going to ship on time? I'm going to really try. And the answer is because unlike the 370, where I was developing the hardware during the time, this hardware is done. All I have to do is put the breadboard form factor into the 48 HP panel. I don't have to design any hardware. The design is done. It's all up to Eric. It's all on his shoulders. I don't have to worry. Okay? But there's going to be a point where, hang on a second, my screen, my Windows 10 has just decided to do funny things.
Sloppy engineers.
There's going to be a point probably around the first week of April where we have a code freeze. And once we have the real, when I say real, I mean they're 48 HP and they have front panels on them and we can ship them to people and not blow up. Once we have real modules in the hands of beta testers, then any requests coming in, if it's a feature request, will be put aside. We'll have a code freeze, and that testing is usually, I want to do a good 7 solid weeks with 20 different people.
Okay, let me just say this really quick because this.
Give me a unit. Let me finish, and then once it's out, okay, and it's locked, we generally do, unless there's a crash, and we generally don't have crashes. The next release is going to be 4 to 6 months because Eric's going to go off to Iceland, okay, and not even think about this for a while. All right? And so how do you update the firmware? Do you have to do a modem file into it like Mutable? Do I have to hold down these 7 buttons and pray? No, you put on a micro SD card and it takes about, 8 seconds to do the whole update on a micro SD card. So it's really simple to do the update. And so I encourage you to register for Kickstarter, put in your information, and be ready to get those early bird specials.
And that's what I wanted to talk about. So we've already had comments about, I just went to Kickstarter, logged in, but there were no results for a search for E520 or synthesis technology. And that's what I wanted to touch on, which Paul shut me down so abruptly and harshly on. So to explain, You will not find that stuff until November 15th. So,
Well, hang on. That's not entirely
actually,
true.
hold on. No.
Yep.
So it launches on the 15th, but the activation page should be November 1st, right?
Well, okay, hang on. That's what you said is half true. Go to my Facebook page. Bring up my Facebook page. You had it before.
Okay. Oh, you want me to actually do something
Yeah,
for you?
I want you to do it for me as your punishment.
Oh, man.
All right. Scroll down.
Whoop.
See right there where it says kick. Stop right there. Click that. Click that.
If this brings up porn, okay, we're all right.
Ta-da! There it is. Now that's all you're going to see. It won't let you see the campaign. It won't let you see the videos. But there it is. So if you want to go here where it says notify me, there's 72 people following. Okay. Then if there's the URL up there, kickstarter.com projects, Reddit, synth-tech, so there's a little number there. Okay. You see that number after it says projects? There's a big number. That number, that's the number that is for this preview page. Okay. That number will go away when it's real and it'll put you into the real one. But send me a join request. And you can click on this, or you can copy it right here at the top of the thing, and you can sit there and add yourself to the notify me. I was under the impression that it was in their search page, but maybe because I'm the creator, I can see it. Okay. So there you have it. Now, what I'll do is I will take this link and I will put it into the comments on the YouTube page as well. Hey, Ken, can you do that? Take that link and copy it into the YouTube.
I already did. I already copied the Kickstarter link in there.
Right.
How well that will work in the comments, I don't know. But it's in there, and I'm gonna. So here's the thing: like, most of the people who would view this long of a stream and stick around, and we've got at least 41 people sticking around live watching this, plus a good bit more on Facebook and whatnot. The people who would stick around this long are either really smart or really stupid. It's one of the two. So I'm going to guess that they can figure this out and find this page. I thoroughly believe in you, the viewer. I believe in you that you can figure this crap out and find this page. Man, my heart is there with you. And I just,
I'll make it easy. So what I'm going to do is, if you just go to synth-tech.com, I'll put the Kickstarter link on my very top of my homepage. I just got this link a couple of days ago. The way that Kickstarter works, by the way, if one little thing that I'm going to sign off, is that Kickstarter freezes my page so that you can't edit it, because they don't want people going back and said, I never said that. And they go, yes, you did. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. Okay. So I turned in my full Kickstarter page a week ago, and it's been frozen. Okay. So I can't change that page, and I can't do anything, and they don't want me to change it until it goes live. And once it goes live, the only thing I can do is add rewards. Okay. So if someone says, I want a stuffed penguin, I can say that's $17 and his name is Vlad. So we'll have Vlad the stuffed penguin for $17. That's a reward. I can add those, but I can't go in there and add text. That's why when you read through my Kickstarter actual page, you're going to see multiple instances of me saying, please go to my website. That's where the information is. That's where the demos are. The Kickstarter page only has 3 or 4 demos on it. The demo page has like 27. Okay. Kickstarter won't let me put 27 demos on the page. So I have to link back. So just be prepared, and I hope to sell out of my early bird specials. Okay, so we'll talk about pricing real quick. I believe the early bird specials on this from memory is $539 plus shipping. That's just the module. The module was in black or silver, the same price, black or silver. When you go to order, you'll see, I want a black one, I want a silver one, and then it will ask you where you live. And and you should have that because you put that in when you registered. You did, didn't you? You were pre-registered.
Gotta do it.
So it'll pull it up, and then it looks up the shipping and says, here's your total amount. Okay. And then you say pledge. So there's early bird specials. There's non-early bird specials. When they run out, you have to pay $5.79. So you're saving $40 by getting an early bird special. There's another price for a black or silver in. Okay, black or silver. I'm not going to say the word in. I corrected myself. With. Let's talk about the difference between in and with. Okay? Because is this module in or with the pod?
Yes.
No, it's in the pod.
I said yes.
You're wrong. You failed the patent bar.
I don't know. Do the sides come up over top of it?
No, it's
Do
all
the
about
sides
the
come
word.
up over top of it? Because if they come up over top of it, Paul, then it's probably in. But if it just sits on top and it's flush with it, then I would say with.
You don't have no idea what you're talking about, but that's normal. Okay. Due to regulations, I cannot ship the 520 in the pod. I have to ship the 520 with the pod.
So what you mean is that they're packaged separately. You have to install it yourself?
Yes, and I hope you can do it. It takes 4 screws and a cable.
How dare you?
And it's not me. It's the government. The government says I can't do it, so I'm not going to do it. And don't ask me why, because if you don't know, I can't explain it to you.
I bet you I know why. Underwriter's Laboratory and
Nope.
power supply stuff.
Nope. Wrong.
No?
Don't listen to him. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Damn, I shot my shot, okay?
And you were wrong. That's fine. No, you can't get it in red and you can't get it in purple. Okay. So when you buy it bundled with, you're going to get the pod power supply, and there's one little feature, and I know it's on the page, but someone's going to be disappointed because they don't know how to read properly. Yeah. So that is if you order outside of North America, which is defined to be Canada and the US in North America terms, you have to provide your own power supply cable. Okay, because 4 milliseconds doesn't supply the cable, and neither can I. So I have a picture. It's called an IEC-5 or something like that. It's got 3 little female receptacles and a triangle that will not be shipped. So if you buy this bundled and you're in Germany, you will get the power supply. You will not get the AC cord. If you buy it bundled in US or Canada, you'll get the power supply and the AC cord.
So what if I want to buy in America but plug into Japan?
You better go buy a freaking power cord in Japan for it. It costs about 1,200 yen. Okay, so
All right.
it's removable. All right, so those are the bundles. And also, like last time, I had this was a request after it started that I added to the 370 Kickstarter that's in the current 520 Kickstarter is 2 at a time. So yes, you can order 2 early birds or 2 production units, not because you necessarily want quad, or if you want to chain algorithms, you can plug one into the other one. And there's your chain. Chain all you want. Chain them. But it's for you and your buddy to get together because you each save $20 by bundling it.
So it will play Doom and Far Cry.
Yes, it'll play Far Cry 5 on Ultra settings, but not Crisis, because nobody plays Crisis on Ultra.
Nobody plays Crisis.
So I want to thank everybody for sticking around. Ken's getting punchy, and I'm getting.
My wife is like ready to beat me, and I'm fiending for some hot wings.
Right.
So
Get your hot wings. Thanks, everybody. Mark your calendars for this Friday, November the 15th. If you have any questions, you can join the synth-tech. Join the synth-tech, not Synthesis Technology, because that's a drug company in Austin. And I promised him I couldn't use this technology.
they sell good
So I
drugs?
didn't. So I'm using synth-tech because that's really what
How well are their drugs engineered is what I want to know.
I don't know, but I just got a ping that says, stop talking about us. So synth-tech modular on Facebook is the best way to do it. If you don't like Facebook, I show up occasionally when I feel like I need a good beating on the Muff Wiggler web forum. Okay. You can also follow me on Instagram as Synthesis Technology because they don't have an Instagram account and I stole it. Ha 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 ha. So you can follow me on Instagram. I'm not on Twitter.
Okay. So just to recap, everybody, go check that crap out. And hopefully, if you're lucky, you'll get one of these E520s and maybe some of your input can be included into it, which I'll tell you right now, like I've got a bunch of ideas that I'm going to toss towards Paul and see whether or not he completely shoots them down or if he thinks that they're good ideas. We'll see. We'll see what he thinks. Generally speaking, my ideas are better than his, so I'm guessing that he'll probably shoot them down out of ego, and then we'll go from there. But I will say that I'm really kind of interested in the whole E520 with a pod thing because it's really nice to see, standalone multi-effects units like that have CV. So I like that. Outside of that, I would say, like, just as a recommendation, go check out the E5 352 because that thing is pretty crazy. I've got a bunch of friends who have E352s. I still am rocking an old school the 350 working terrarium, and I keep thinking the only thing that's killing me is that, like, admittedly it's a gluttonous thing, but I use it as a really great LFO, and I know you have a separate LFO that's great, like you have a dedicated LFO module, but right. I use that thing a lot as an LFO because I really enjoy like the wave shaping ability of it. So I tend to use it in that way. I mean, that's why the hell you include it
all in the E352.
So
right, but it's all in the E352.
Yeah,
every single wave, all 192 waves that are in the E350 are in the E352.
Yeah, so I highly recommend you check that stuff out because they're like really well engineered and cool ass modules. So anyway, thank you guys for hanging out and checking the live stream out. And if you have
under 3 hours, we're under 3 hours.
We're under 3 hours for once. So you can shoot me messages and I'll forward them to Paul, whatever. And you can of course contact Paul and he'll challenge you to some Stratego or something. So we'll make it happen.
All right, next up, pinball. See you later.
Peace. So